my wife's 69th birthday, and the Manfredi clan is gathered together, the four of us that are left. My oldest brother Sam, who's the big mouth, he's 81. He's 80, he'll be 81 in July.
That's the way off.
And his wife Eleanor, and I'm John, and I'm 76, and my wife Mary Ann, and then there's Evelyn over here.
We'll talk about the stuff.
And then my sister Rose. And we're here, my nieces want to compile what we did while we were growing up. So here we go.
How bad you were.
I was hoping he'd get to an end.
All Rose has to do is shut up.
Family and Al.
I'm the oldest one in the family, Sam Freedy. This is the year 2002, which my brother Johnny, Big Mouth, never told us what year we did. And this is my wife Eleanor, and she'll take over for my speech.
I'm Eleanor Manfredi, and I have 5 children, 4 grandchildren. We live in the old house that Sam was born in. Back in we moved there. 1950. Before Carol was born. And that's old. And that's old. What else did I say?
That's the old family homestead.
Yeah.
This is the family, the Manfredi family was raised in this same house, so I want to keep the tradition. I want to keep the Manfredi house alive like me, so.
Dad built it.
Did he build it?
Uncle Tony and
You can talk. It'll pick it up.
Uncle Tony and my dad, Patsy Manfredi Sr., keep that house as a family treat. And wait till we start telling you some stories about that house.
I don't know all of them. I can't remember, but I'm the only poor one in the family. That's why I had to stay in the old homestead. Everybody else got $1 million homes.
You know, my brother Sam said,
All right, give your wife a hug
bring
and a
that over
kiss.
here. I got something to say.
Give your wife a hug and a kiss.
Congratulations to my wife, and congratulations to Rose Pepper and her husband for having us here.
And when's your anniversary? September 13th.
And it'll be
55 years. Woo. And when's your birthday? August 15th. And his is July 7th. And how old are you today? 78.
And I'm 80 years old. I'll be 81 this coming July.
Oh, great. All right, now we're going to move on. We see Terry up at the bar.
Drinking as usual.
Drinking as usual with Carol in the background. How old are you, Carol, today, or are we telling?
I'm very old.
There's Mary Lou.
I'm as old as the house. Well, maybe a year older than that.
You're not old.
No, that's how old the house is. I mean, I'm not standing. There's Aunt Mary Ann. But we're on our way to, Uncle John. So we'll go around the room.
Who's sitting next to Aunt Mary Ann?
Forgot Mary Lou.
No, I did do Mary Lou. She didn't talk, so I
I'll
kept
be the
going.
quiet one of the group.
There's Aunt Ev and Uncle Bill.
Whatever his name is.
That's the oldest girl in the family, Rose Ferguson Manfredi.
Rose Manfredi first.
Yeah.
Rose Manfredi Ferguson.
Oh, okay.
All right, now we're back to Uncle John.
Okay.
Back to the guy that does all the talking.
My brother Sam lived in the old homestead. He said he moved there because he's the poorest. He moved there because he was able to buy that house for a nickel and a dime. And that's why he wouldn't even move into a better house for his wife.
Oh, John.
She's been trying to have him move for the last 50 years. Go pan over there to Eleanor, and she'll tell you the truth. 10 rooms.
I'll take him home if you'd like.
13 rooms, Uncle John.
All right, so tell us about your family.
My family, I got married January 25th, 1953. My wife, Mary Ann Capalbo Manfredi from Pittsburgh. I met her in February of 1952 when I started to work for the White Cross Hospitalization Company, Bankers Life and Casualty, which sold White Cross Hospitalization. That was my fatal mistake when I started that job, because that's when I met Mary Ann.
Fatal.
Then we,
I really appreciate that.
now, of course,
Mary Ann, I think you're gonna take him home.
I don't kill him first.
on January 29th of this year of 2002, we will celebrate our 59th wedding anniversary.
49.
49. Oh, but I think you're 49. So you can see, it seems like I've been married to her for 59. But anyhow, she's going to celebrate her 59th birthday. 59th? 69th birthday on January 13th, which is tomorrow. And we're going to celebrate her birthday here.
He married her when she was 10?
Yeah.
You can see I robbed the cradle. I'm 76 years old, and in August I'll be 77. August 26, 1925 is when I was born. Now you want to pan over to my sister Rose. She's the next oldest.
All right. We're moving over.
Yeah, I'm 71.
Your name?
My name's Rose Ferguson. My maiden name's Manfredi.
And what was your husband's name?
My husband's name was Roy L. Ferguson. Roy Lee Ferguson.
How many kids you got?
Who died?
I have 2 girls. He died. Roy Lee Ferguson died. And I have 2 girls. Deborah Jane and Barbara Sue.
I didn't
Okay.
I didn't tell about my kids.
Are they married? They got any kids?
Barbara Sue got 4 kids. John Michael, Jess McCall, Aunt Marie, and Sarah Brianna.
Who's the
And
oldest?
Deborah Jane's engaged to Terry.
Where's she living at?
She lives in Lakeland, Florida. Deborah Jane. She's a school teacher. She teaches 2nd grade.
Anything else you want to say?
Where you living at? Tell them where.
Where do I live?
Claysville.
Oh, Claysville. Claysville.
You live at?
I live in Claysville.
Care home.
Claysville Care Home.
Okay, who's next?
Evelyn.
She's the last of the heat.
I'm the baby.
I have them both on there now. Go ahead.
I was married to Bill on November 12th, 1954.
Bill who?
Bill Sobey.
Oh, okay.
You want to speak after this? Okay.
All right. I guess we're going to go. We're going to
I'm
forget
always
about Bill.
considered the baby. I was the last one.
There's our wedding picture.
And I have 3 daughters. We have 3 daughters. Judy, Joanne, and Janice. And we have 4 grandchildren. Edward and Sarah. There's Janice, that's the oldest daughter. Calhoun. She's married to Ed Calhoun. And Joanne Merkel, and she's married to Todd Merkel, and she has Jason 14 and Kristen 12. And Judy's married to Bob Terrell, but has got no children. And we live in South Hills, Pittsburgh, Scott Township.
Did you say how old you are yet?
I didn't say my age. I am 68, and Bill had a birthday in December, and he was
72.
talk to you for yourself.
72.
72.
4-year-old.
You're 1 year older than me. I'm 71.
I married a baby in a family.
Yeah, you
That's
did.
all. That's all.
That's all. Okay, we're going to pan on around. We're going back over here. John has more to say. We're going to slide around.
Yeah.
There he is.
I forgot to give you the information concerning, me and my wife have been trying for over 10 years to have children, and we decided to finally adopt 2 little girls. We got Renee Yvonne Manfredi. When she was 2 days old, we brought her home from the hospital. That was in December 20th, 1962. Then on June the 7th, 1963, Pamela Ann Manfredi was born, and we adopted her. So we have 2 adopted girls. now we also have 2 grandchildren, Kelly Colin Malloy, who is 11 or 10, how old is Kelly? 11, and Daniel Patrick Malloy is 6, and he'll be 7 in February. So that's the John T. Manfredi family.
Is that it, John T. Manfredi?
That's it.
All right.
Sam forgot to tell you that he, during World War II, he served in the U.S. Air Force. And in 1943, August of 1943, I joined the Merchant Marine, and I sailed the Merchant Marine during World War II for 8 years. That's what the extent.
How many years you served with Prudential?
I worked for the Prudential. I started working for Prudential Life Insurance Company December of 1954, and I retired February 1988. Started my 34th year in December of 1987, and in February 29th, 1988, I retired from the Prudential.
Okay.
Now you can stop because.
Is it on?
No, I don't know, I said the white.
This is the Washington couple wed for 25 years. This is Sam and Eleanor Manfredi.
I just happened to find them. Yeah. Yeah.
What?
See, at that
I'm
time,
taking pictures of
at that time, you can describe what you wore and everything.
Bring your own
Now
bottle.
they don't put any of that in. And you pay for it.
Gloria's Day.
We didn't pay for that. That was put in free.
Is that Aunt Jay?
No, that's, oh,
I know who those are.
who is that?
Is that your mom?
I think it's me. Because I think that's my mom back there. Let's see the picture.
That's me.
It's me.
Would this work better? She has 7 layers.
With Grandma.
Grandma, Grandpap, and Joanne, the little girl, and Jenny in the background. How about Rosemary? Get this in.
Hi, Rose and Terry. Thank you for inviting me, even though I'm not one of the
Elite.
elite.
One of the aunts and uncles.
I'm honored to be here with my parents and my sister and my Uncle John, my Uncle Bill, my Aunt Evelyn, my Aunt Rose, and my Aunt Marianne. And I wish my Aunt Marianne a happy birthday tomorrow. She's reminded of her birthday constantly now. And I hope everyone enjoys themselves and brings back a lot of memories of everything.
You're a graduate of what university?
We have to say Penn State in this.
Where's your Penn State outfit?
Yeah. On her car.
Yeah, I drove my Penn State car here.
Who was sitting over here?
Yeah.
Listen, pasta. When we were kids, up in the back of where Sam lives now, we must have had how many acres of ground? We used to plant potatoes, tomatoes, corn, and all of the vegetables. And we used to have big hotbeds that were about 8 feet long and about 3 feet wide, and a walkway between. We had 2 of them. And I can remember when we were kids, we used to take the dirt out of the hotbeds, and we used to put the potatoes, the cabbage, the celery, the carrots, corn. We used to put it inside these hotbeds and cover it up with dirt again, and then put the glass covers on top of that. And all winter long, we had fresh vegetables, and we used to go out and take them in and bring them in. Then, in one part of Sam's cellar, Dad built a walk-in cooler, you might call it, with a concrete ceiling, concrete walls, and this used to be lined with shelves. And Mother used to can tomatoes, peppers, pears, peaches, all kind of vegetables. And we used to have those 50-pound lard cans, and we used to make our own hot sausage, and we used to string it up in the garage and smoke it. Then we'd put it in the lard, the 50-pound lard cans, and we would melt the fat of the pig and then pour it in there, and it would gel, and that would preserve the hot sausage. And whenever we'd want some, we went down into the cellar and got some, and Mother would cook it. We also made our own capricola. We also made our own supersata. All these Italian salamis and that. And we had all this stuff when we were growing up. And you know, it's amazing. We used to eat more pork because we raised our own chickens. I can remember one time we had a couple of hundred chickens.
Tell them who did the work. Was Aunt Evelyn too young to take care
Well,
of
I dug the garden.
We all did it. All the boys did it. And
it? Come on, Aunt Evelyn, correct
All
her.
the boys.
well, I think Evelyn might have helped my sister Rose,
Rose, did you ever work in the
my
garden?
sister Mary, and my sister Jenny.
Did you? I don't remember you working in the garden.
And we used to hold peppers and tomatoes. You wouldn't believe how much we used to store. And
Put tomatoes, I think.
I can remember coming home from high school, right next door to the house, there was a hillside. And we used to have to pick and shovel. And I can remember we hit some stone, and my dad, having worked in the coal mine, brought some caps home, and he used to set dynamite in to try to loosen the stone. And I can remember one time he set the dynamite off, and it broke all the windows in the house. You remember that, Sam? And we used to dig out this hillside, and we used to wheel the dirt across the street from the house, and we widened that street out there.
We made double garage. That's when we did that.
After we did all the digging, we built a big two-car garage, and in back of the two-car garage is this, I call it a walk-in cooler with cement walls and cement ceiling, cement floor, and all the shelving for all the canned goods that Mother made, and all the meats, capricolas and that we used to store. And we always had pepperoni or Italian sausage and all the different Italian sandwiches.
We raised our own pigs and cow. I used to milk the cow.
Chickens.
We used to have a pig in a
I
garden.
remember my mother used to kill the chickens. She used to grab the neck.
Yeah.
I remember
Wring that neck right off.
When we got married, after we got married, we lived in the back. And she said to me, I'll show you how to kill a chicken. I said, I never did that. I said, my mother always bought the chickens already killed and everything. She said, I'll show you. And she took me one day and she showed me how she twisted that. I said, I said, dear, I'll never do that again. Forget that.
Well, that's the way my mother did it, but
I know.
I used to hold the chicken down there, and I used to have an axe, a hatchet, and I just chopped the head off.
this will get everybody.
did it when you were growing up, man. You did it when you were growing up, huh? I was a skinny girl. My mother was
I can remember.
Yeah, that's right.
I killed a lot of
My mother
I
did.
remember her having to clean them.
Yeah.
Get feathers off.
I can remember cleaning the pigsty out, getting down in there cleaning the pigsty out. And I can remember when I used to go to high school, I used to take a bologna sandwich with hot peppers on it. And all the guys used to be envious of me. I used to have 2 or 3 sandwiches. Bologna sandwiches with hot peppers for my lunch when I was in high school.
Would you say you and Louis Rosa
Yeah,
used to
what's
go
your
in the
girl
back?
set?
We used to sit up in the auditorium with the last row up at the top so
Because they had the homemade bread, you know.
nobody sees us eating their homemade bread.
You didn't want anyone to know you were eating homemade bread?
No, all the other ones brought. You know, they came with store bread now.
Yeah.
There anyway, homemade bread.
That was better.
Oh, yeah. I used to take homemade bread to school, sandwiches to school.
I remember making homemade bread. That was not my favorite job. It was a great big wash pan.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother kept saying, 25 pounds of
Oh,
flour.
yeah.
My mother kept saying, you gotta keep pushing it, you gotta keep pressing it. You can't get no air in it.
I can remember we used to have one of those homemade ice cream, one of them homemade ice cream things, and you'd have to churn it.
My mother used to make 25 at one time.
I did 15 at once.
We made our own hot sausage. We made our own ice cream. We made our own butter.
What'd you do for fun?
Work.
I was gonna say.
That's what we did for fun. We worked. Oh, I used to have toys.
It's not an X-rated movie, so I can't say.
I used to have toys. I used to make cars out of, the thread that you buy in the store with the wooden spools that was left over. That was our toys.
Put nails in the spring and it would make that long.
Mm-hmm.
And cardboard boxes from Uncle Pat.
Then as the guys got married, I remember living with my mother. Every Christmas Eve we would fry smelt,
Mm-hmm.
make these little dough balls and put anchovies in it.
She did sardines.
And sardines, and we used to make bread, and we had bags all lined up. This is for Jenny, this is for Mary, this is for Sam, and they would come down and everybody could get their bags and their free teas.
We look forward to those.
And my daughters never liked milk, but now that they're older, they keep saying, "Why don't you make milk?" No, they don't. They're older. When they were kids, we used to make our own homemade spaghetti.
You want me to get it out?
Yeah, I'll get it.
And that's all.
You don't know what she likes.
Right, just it's
She wanted to zoom in on you since we were talking.
And I remember Rose's mother, Jenny, was my older sister, and she was like our mother. We never went shopping unless she went with us, helped us pick out what we were to buy.
As far as food or clothes or what?
Clothes, as far as clothes are concerned. And everybody went to Trinity High School until we moved on Jefferson Avenue, and then I had to go to Wash High. So I was the only one that went to Wash High.
And she used to sneak because she was the majorette. Her dad didn't allow her to do that.
He didn't want me to wear a short uniform, so my brothers had to talk him into. But my mother and dad never went to any of my games, never saw me march, never saw me at a parade.
Did you mind, or no one did it in those
Nobody ever
days?
did it. And Jay, none of them, even my sisters did. I think Annie maybe was his hand.
I remember you practicing outside in your uniform, you know. You were really pretty in your uniform, you know.
What?
You were really pretty in your uniform.
Thank you. Yeah, it's, my dad never knew a lot because I wasn't even allowed to date. And I would go outside and talk to friends that I went to school with that lived down by me. As soon as he saw me talking to a guy, he would yell, "Evelina, come in this house." And the guys were scared to death. Remember that?
Well, how did Uncle Bill get by you?
Well, I met Uncle Bill at Aunt Jay's house. Every time I had a date,
well, we had a
when we
date.
first started dating.
Right, but you never met me there.
No, and then
Yeah, we'd meet there.
then finally, whenever Bill and I were dating, I would have to do ironing, and he would sit on the couch with my dad while I just ironed clothes or whatever. And, we were never together like you do, watch TV together or anything like that. My dad and mother was always right there in the living room. Right?
How did you meet? Since he wasn't from Washington.
We met at a
Teenage club,
teenage club
Vic's place in Houston.
for just teenagers, no booze or nothing.
Vic's Map, you had a hamburger counter and milkshakes and stuff like that, a little dance hall in the back.
Do you remember
Yeah.
Henry's down in Finleyville?
Yeah.
Yeah, Henry, oh yeah, we used to go down there.
So did you and Aunt Evelyn dance?
Oh yes,
Well, my friend Rose Macri, she introduced billed to everybody there, my sister Rose, and Teresa Desmond, and everybody, and she never introduced us, billed to me. And then you said,
I was working behind the counter.
and then he said,
So I walked back in the dance hall. I took something back there, and I went over and asked Aunt Ed to dance. Because she wasn't introduced to me, so I went over to
How much older are you than Anna?
4 years.
So did she dance with you?
Yes.
And they've been waltzing through life ever since.
47 years.
I can remember
Oh, I don't know if I like it.
when I came home from the Merchant Marine in 1951, I bought a new Pontiac. Me and my dad went in, I bought it, paid cash for it, $1,900 for a 1952 white Pontiac sedan. And I'd have it parked out back of the house, and my sister Evelyn used to go out and warm that car up for me
Every morning.
every morning before I would
Coat on the radiator.
leave, so that my car would be hot. Of course, she had a motive behind that because I always loaned her my car whenever she wanted it.
Then in 1953, my dad bought me a 1954 Oldsmobile 88. 53 Oldsmobile 88, Super 88.
Did he buy all his kids?
No, I was the only one that drove, and then the other girls learned afterwards. But I learned how to drive, but with the stipulation, of course, I had to pay him $50 a month for the car until it was paid off, and I had to take him for a ride every night before I went out, and take him to church and drive them wherever they wanted to go.
Who's them?
My mother and dad. I would have to take them for a ride every night, and
almost every Sunday we went for a ride.
every Sunday,
somewhere.
yeah.
I can remember when we were kids, out on Warwick Avenue, we used to go out, way out past where we used to live, and we used to put a cable across the street on Halloween and stop cars. We used to go out and upset them outhouses. Back them days, we had outhouses, toilets on the outside, and we used to go, the gang of us used to go and upset the toilets.
I don't remember none of that. I never
And
did
we used to
that.
throw tomatoes and stuff at cars as they used to go by. I mean, that's the bad stuff we did when we were kids.
I don't remember. I remember the what's one that was a preacher? We used to walk on Warwick Avenue, and they used to throw tomatoes at us. Call us Holy Rule or something. Then his son got saved and he was a preacher. They lived down by Paulie Comfort's down on Warwick Avenue.
Max.
No, it wasn't Max.
Yeah,
Andy Mack.
Andy Mack, yeah.
Andrew Lee.
Remember that?
So, Aunt Eleanor, how did you and Uncle Sam meet?
I need to turn off that light because we're recording.
Okay, Ernestine's sister Hazel lived in Washington, and her husband had just died. And she said to me, why don't you go out to Washington and visit my sister and spend some time with her because she's real lonely. She has 2 little girls, and she'd like company. So this friend of mine, Aunt Colano, and I decided to go there for a week. My father allowed me to go. So we went, and the first night we were there, Hazel said, why don't we take a walk uptown? That time, you walked everywhere, and it was safe. So we walked uptown, and we walked up to the corner of North Main Street, and I see this fellow across the street staring at me,
Soldier.
a soldier. And I said to Hazel, who's that? Why is he staring at me? She said, oh, that's my brother-in-law, Sam. Hey, Sam, come on over, she said. I want you to meet somebody. So he said, he come over, and she introduced him to us. So he said, let's go for a drink. So there was a bar up at the corner of South Main Street there. So he took us in there for a drink. And after that, every night I stayed here, he came down to Aunt Hazel's, and we went out every night. Then when I went back to Pittsburgh, he came down every weekend.
spent the weekend at Jim's. We went together for a year. We were married. That's the story of our wedding.
That was my downfall.
Marianne, how did you miss Johnny?
I did. Tell him.
I worked for,
Wait, let me get.
Okay. My brother Bill was the oldest of the family, and I can remember they bought a house on Jefferson Avenue, and he gutted the whole house out. And I had just learned how to drive, and we used to have streetcars running up and down the street in Jefferson Avenue. And one time he sent me out to pick up something, and I took his, I think it was 1937 Chevy, and it had an open trunk where we used to haul the Maytag washing machines on, and I got stuck in the streetcar tracks, and I turned that car around, and I smashed it against one of the telephone poles, and I got my rear end kicked all the way home from my brother. Then one other time, I was up at the Washington Theater, and my brother Bill saw me uptown with dungarees on, overalls I call them, and he said to me, "You never come uptown," because he was the top salesman for the Maytag company, selling Maytag washing machines for Wilson Electric Company, and he kicked my rear end all the way home. He said, "Go home and don't you ever come uptown again without being dressed up," because he didn't want to tell anybody. You had to be, if you're related to Bill Manfredi, you had to be dressed properly. And my dad used to say, "You bring disgrace on the family name, and you never have to get arrested. I'll take care of you." Remember, our dad was the real patriarch, and you dare not bring any disgrace on the family name.
Man, what is
Go ahead, Sam. What are you going to be?
The pennies.
Are they good?
Oh, yeah. You take the skin off. If I can take the skin off.
That's a good picture, Uncle Sam. Go ahead.
Like he said, Brother Bill was the oldest. He passed away while I was in the service. 46. I didn't get to see him. And,
He was laid out at home.
yeah, I heard he was laid out at home. But,
In those days, I know my grandfather, I remember, played that.
but then my brother Joe was the next oldest. And he managed softball team, basketball team, football team, you name it, he had a hand in it. And when we was kids, he used to give us his old softballs, old baseballs, and we used to play down in just a ball diamond. Then at 8 o'clock at night, my dad used to call Sammy, Johnny, Annie, Liz, just Evelyn, just
One whistle, one holler.
one holler. You ain't home after that, you got it. So we had to be home. By 8:30, we had to be home in bed. So we was raised up strict. We had a lot of fun. We used to play out in the streets. There weren't that many cars at that time. We played with the milk cans. We used to have, that was our football and our hockey. We used to make our own hockey sticks. We used to have, we gave a telephone wire went across the road. That used to be the line. So many.
They bought the shells.
Oh, then she
No, this is for the plug it in.
You know what you're drinking, that's all.
or French ginger ale.
Yeah, Rose, how have you had it at a wedding?
Oh, I don't remember.
You drank 4 glasses.
I don't remember.
Okay.
That's why she doesn't remember.
All right. Do you guys feel comfortable here, or do you want to sit over there?
Well, all right.
Or- You're all right? So you want to start talking again? So tell us about, let's start with Uncle Joe's wedding. Who remembers about Uncle Joe's wedding?
Uncle Joe and Aunt Betty ran off, didn't they?
Yeah, they
Eloped.
went out and got eloped, and they came and lived in the basement of Sammy's mother and dad's house. After they got married, they had 2 big rooms in the basement of the old homestead. Then they moved to Duncan Avenue.
No, Hayes Avenue
Yeah,
first.
hey,
They lived on Hayes.
Oh, that's right.
They
I
had a
remember
lot
when
of
they
things
lived on
before they
Hayes.
went on Duncan.
All I
remember them on
know
West
is I'm the
Chestnut
youngest.
Then they went up on Chestnut Street, then they tore that house down and put Eden Park up there, remember?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All I know is I'm the youngest, and I had to give up my bedroom for everybody. When Dawn and Mary Ann got married, when Trap went to the service, Lizzie moved in. When Annie and Pee Wee came to live with us, they moved in. Right? It's true. We lived there for 2 weeks, and Eleanor and Tammy lived there 2 weeks. So I was always kicked out of my bedroom.
We were only there 5 months. We were having a house built.
So who stood up for Uncle Joe? Did it just him and Aunt Betty left?
They eloped.
They didn't know.
Just by themselves. They didn't bring anyone.
No.
All right. So then who we have? Well, we had Bill and Hazel first,
Right.
right? And
Does anybody remember Bill and Hazel's wedding?
They eloped too, didn't they?
No, they got married in that church on Bow Street.
Oh, Church of the Covenant.
so did they have a big wedding?
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't remember that.
It was mainly family. Her family and our family.
Well, that was a crowd in itself. Because her family was big too, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The DePaoli. I
Okay.
wasn't in the family then, so I can't help you.
So we had Uncle Bill, Uncle Joe, then who?
Uncle Pat.
No, Uncle Pat didn't get married. It would have been them first.
Tenny. No, Eleanor and Tammy.
Us first. We were married like 2 weeks before your mom and dad.
Where's that
Yeah.
announcement? That they were
Tell her the
before.
date.
September 13th, 1947.
And tell us about your wedding. Did you elope?
No, we had a big wedding. We got married in St. Paul's Cathedral in Pittsburgh. Then we had a dinner at Frenchie's restaurant in East Liberty for 250 people.
Wow. Now who paid for the weddings then, back
My
then?
parents did.
So the
Uncle Sam bought the liquor, but my parents paid for everything else.
We had the reception done.
We had the reception down at St. Lorenzo Hall in Oakland for 400 people. And at that time,
you
we
had
didn't
the
have
dinner.
caterers. We had all the women in the neighborhood cooked, helped my mother cook. And they each one cooked something different. We had chicken and hot sausage and you name it, and they cooked it. It was all done by the neighbors.
and what
The
about
bridesmaids had different colored gowns.
And all the bridesmaids
They're not
had.
like they are.
And the original wedding party are still living. My original wedding party. They're still alive.
You had them at the
We had what?
50th reunion.
We had them at the 50th reunion, yeah.
so did they have bridal showers before the wedding?
Yeah, we had a bride. My girlfriend surprised me. It was just a bridal shower for 7 people. My mother didn't even know about it.
Oh.
And she wasn't there. They didn't invite her. They just invited, there were 7 of us. They surprised me. I was at home and one of the girls said, come on down to my house for a cup of coffee. So I went down and they said, surprise. They were nicest little shower for me.
And what about honeymoons?
We went to New York on a honeymoon. We went and saw your grandparents. We had dinner with them. And then we rode the subway everywhere we went. We went to the zoo and we went to the movies and we went all over New York.
State.
Empire State Building, Statue of Liberty. At that time we had to climb the steps to the Statue of Liberty. There were no elevators. So we stayed in New York a week.
Oh, that's nice.
We had a really nice
All right,
honeymoon.
so then mother, Jenny, got married.
Yeah, she got
How did
married.
she meet her husband Phil?
I don't know.
That was through me.
It was a fix-up marriage. Through me.
So it was you, huh?
During the war in 1943, 44, I stayed at the Mangiapanis.
How did you know them?
Well, their brother, Phil's brother Charlie, used to live with us for years. How long did he live with us?
Oh, no, I can remember them feeding me hot pepper on a tablespoon.
No, but I mean, he stayed up in the bedroom.
What year were you
He used
married,
to,
Al?
he used, Phil, Charlie Mangiapane used to get eggs. He had a little penknife. He used to bust the end of it and suck the egg out of there.
Oh.
And he used to eat raw oysters. And he used to tease me about trying to eat it. I said, ain't no way you can give me any of that stuff. That's just like snot. You just eat the snot.
I know where it's at.
That's what people feast on in New Orleans.
Yeah. That's what we hit back then.
Oh, yeah.
They used to, that's all they do, is just suck them eggs out of there.
All right, so tell us about Jenny and Phil getting married. Did they run away or?
No.
They were married at their mother's house, at her mother's house. So I have the.
He got the clipping right here.
During the war, during World War II, I lived with them under Pontiac, and Phil used to drive.
I think it was October 5th.
Phil drove home with me, Pennsylvania Turnpike, and I used to come home between my trips. When I used to sail, when I'd get off of a ship,
She always told me it was a fourth.
Yeah, that's what I always
and then Phil and Jenny met.
So they got married October the
5th. And
In
Anna
her house.
Manfredi was the maid of honor, and Joseph Mentipani was the best man.
So did they go anywhere for their honeymoon?
Yes, they took a trip. Wait a second.
And she's reading the article from the newspaper.
The couple took a northern wedding trip. That's all it says.
Niagara Falls.
Okay, so what else happened? Did they have a reception at their house or?
There was a dinner served to the members of the immediate family at the home there, at the family home.
So did any of his family from New York come?
Yes, there were people, it says that there were guests from Jamaica, New York, Pittsburgh, and Bronzeville. So Jamaica, New York would have been the man Japan.
Family.
From there,
Would have been
And who married them? When you get married at the home?
Reverend Thomas Tedeschi married them.
at our home.
Now who was he?
He was a minister of Christian Church of North America.
So at what point?
That time it was the Italian Christian Church.
So she was married Catholic?
No.
Italian Christian Church.
And Christian Church in North America.
So when did Grandma switch from Catholic to?
Right before you were born.
Right before I
He was the first
child
children
born.
not to be baptized Catholic.
They changed to a Pentecostal church in 1924.
Why? Because of Uncle Tony Comfort?
No,
No,
because of the fact that she had children that died when they were infants and the priest wouldn't bury them because they had no money. And somebody told them, but I know a preacher that'll bury your child free. And that's how they come to exchange.
that was Andy, brother.
No, that's how they came.
But that Teresa Ann, remember they had this on the corner of Chestnut and Jefferson? What's the last name? Audio.
Yeah.
Remember, they had a baby that died, and the
Mother
priest,
said that's how she came to know the Lord.
the priest wanted to bury that child in purgatory,
You know.
and Mr. Audio didn't want that, and that's when they came to Reverend Tedeschi, and he buried that child, and that's when they start changing. And Reverend Tedeschi started preaching to them about the Pentecostal.
And remember, Dad I don't know how Dad won a car. And he gave it to the preacher because he didn't know how to drive.
Your mother won the car.
Well,
Mother won the car, and Mom couldn't drive, or Dad couldn't drive, and they gave it to
the preacher.
the preacher or whoever, I don't know.
Would that
Okay,
have been
so
Brother Tom?
I don't know.
all right. So after my mom Jenny, then who?
Mary.
Okay. So who wants to talk about Mary's wedding? Did she run
Well,
away
Mary,
or?
Mary was met Francis through through the mail. And yeah, through the mail. She met Francis, and he
They were pen pals.
pen pals, right? That's it. And he was stationed down in Texas, or I forget, Tennessee, someplace. And she wanted to go to see him, and my dad said, if you go down there and leave my house and go down there, you have to marry him. And that's what she did.
So she got married down there.
No, she come back here. We had the wedding here because she tried to fix her Francis' brother like your mother. This was before your mother got married, so they were trying to fix that up. So I ended up that she got
She had
married.
never met him?
Well, that she met him through pen pal.
Just through pen pal, and
Yeah.
then she married him?
Well, I guess she might, he come home from service and she met him. And then when he went back, she wanted to go back. And then.
They wrote back and forth while he was in the service. So he came home from, on
He lived in
leave one time,
Brownsville.
and he visited her.
Right.
And
Can
then
we move on from John around?
the romance
around?
increased,
Okay.
and he wanted to marry her,
I'm getting your
and
back.
she wanted to go to
Come here.
Texas or wherever it was. And
No.
that's
This
when
is better. In that space.
Dad said,
between-
if you go there, you have to marry him.
She did.
Right.
But they came back and got married back home.
All right, so that's Aunt Mary. Then who?
The Annie next.
No, Lizzie or Annie?
Annie didn't get married until right the summer before me.
So was Lizzie. Lizzie and Trap.
Annie got married in
Lizzie and Trap
52.
were, they were childhood sweethearts. They went all through school together. I don't think she had any other boyfriends but Trap. And they got married.
Uh-huh.
And he was Catholic and she wasn't. And he ate dinner at his house and she ate dinner at her house.
For the wedding, you
For the
mean?
wedding, yeah.
On the day of the wedding?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because the mother-in-law didn't approve of the wedding. And I think they got married. Where'd they get married? Church of the Covenant?
I don't know.
Winchester?
Where'd they go
I don't
away to
know.
get
I
married?
don't know where they got
Did
married.
they go away for honeymoon anywhere?
I don't remember. I think he was in service, probably went.
He was in the service, I know.
Then when we drove to Washington D.C.,
We went to Washington D.C. to see Benny when he was stationed there, and then Lizzie moved back home. Took my bedroom. I had to move back up in the attic. And she stayed there a whole time Trap was in the service.
So how long is it like 4 years or 8 years, or do you remember?
4 years.
4 years?
Yeah. And then came Annie, right? Annie
And her wedding was at the house,
and her
too.
wedding was at the house.
Now, how did they get married? How did they meet?
You remember?
You know how Annie
Do you remember? I can't remember how they met. They got married.
I remember being there for the wedding, but I don't
Yeah.
remember.
And they had the big dinner at
I
home.
remember they were dating in '50, but then I went to the service and I don't know how they.
Yeah.
When
And
was-
the Pee-wee,
Yeah, how'd they
What?
get married? How'd they meet?
I don't know.
What month were they married? I know they got married in the summer, and it was the summer before our wedding. So it would have been 52, but I don't remember what month it was.
I forget. I have it home, but I don't have it here.
So did anyone stand up for her? She have a
Yeah.
maid of honor, or?
I don't think I did. No, I think it was Lizzie, probably.
And who was the best
Lizzie-
man, do you know?
Lizzie and Donnie,
Yeah.
Phoebe's
Lizzie.
brother.
Yeah, Phoebe's brother Donnie.
And did the girls cook for her wedding?
Yes, we did everything for their wedding. Too.
Did Grandma cook, or was she too busy and all the other girls cooked?
No, Grandma cooked.
She
She
cooked?
did most of
Your
it.
mother, my mother was,
Yeah.
there was our two mothers. Your mother.
Jenny.
Yeah.
Jenny.
Because my dad used to say Jenny didn't have to go to work because my mother had so many children. 16 kids. I said, Mother, how could you possibly have so many kids? She says, I didn't know any better. And so Jenny was nominated to stay home and help raise the kids.
until she got older, then she went to work
At the
at St. Louis.
No, that article in the paper said that she worked for W.T. Grant Company.
W.T. Grant?
She didn't work at Gimbel's until later. That was
Right.
after the kids were,
Grant, she was,
that was after you came
she
back
worked
to
for,
Florida. She went
she
to
was
work
a
at Gimbel's.
seamstress for.
Same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, in
Later, that was later though.
All right, back to the weddings. We just finished Aunt Ann. Who was after Aunt Ann?
Yeah, you know, Rose and her first husband were married before Ann.
What do you mean her first husband?
She had two.
husbands.
Well, she divorced, but it was, she got married the day before Mother's Day, 1952.
I forget his name.
Bob,
And the reason I know that,
and I stood up for her and Bob's friend. They were going to W&J College. Bob and Mitch.
Mitch, yeah.
And she also got married at home. Front of that same big window.
So Aunt Rose, what do you remember about your first wedding?
It was horrible.
I don't remember nothing. I don't remember.
He
You
was,
lived in the
he
back
was,
house, didn't you?
Huh?
Didn't you live in the back house?
Oh, yeah,
She
the back.
did leave in the back.
Yeah, I live in the back. Back by mother.
That's where Debbie
3
lives.
rooms and a,
Three rooms in the back.
How long were you married, Aunt Rose?
Year and a half.
Okay.
Year and a half.
and he had a drinking problem, right?
Yeah, he always drank, and so I left him because he drank too much.
So when did you meet your second husband?
Oh, I know that. When I meet him at Annie. Through Annie, huh?
I don't remember.
Were you working
Annie
then?
was together.
She worked
Yeah.
at Tiger Valley.
She
Yeah,
was
I
at Tiger
I
Valley.
was at Tiger Valley.
She used to look like $1 million. Her
Yeah.
hair was
She
perfect.
always used to
She
sneak
used to wear high heels
clothes
and dresses to work.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You didn't think she was going to work. She was dressed to kill. She was a beauty star.
She was up in the bathroom for an hour before she went to work. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Did she work in the office?
No.
No.
Packing balls. In the office. Packing balls.
I never done like that, Rose.
Yeah.
So you wore heels, packing boxes.
She used to wear high
She always used to sneak,
dresses.
she used to leave early in the morning. She used to sneak my clothes, my good clothes, because I worked at Bell Telephone in the office,
Uh-huh.
and she would wear
She
them to
was,
work.
she was looking for a man back then, I imagine. She was dressed pretty.
Telephone.
Yeah.
And then when we come home, she got to take a nap because she worked in the factory, and
Oh,
she was
yeah.
on her feet all the time.
Yeah. I worked 5 hours. Yeah.
And she
In the
took,
morning. And I
Yeah.
come home in the afternoon, I used to take naps.
and so, but I never got to take a nap.
Yeah.
Because I worked 8 hours. Because I sat all day on my butt.
She was an operator, so she didn't have a hard work in
And
the
when I
factory.
graduated from high school, I was offered a job at Fairmont Supply typing, being a typist. I was recommended by the school,
How fast were you, Aunt?
and I don't remember how fast, but I remember my dad saying, no, telephone operator like your 2 sisters, they pay the most money. And my dad used to say that if you worked with a utility company, you would always have a job. So I worked at Bell Telephone from 50 to 58.
All right, so we went from Aunt Rose's wedding, where everyone helped cook. Did you have cookies at all your weddings like you do now?
No.
No cookies.
At my wedding, we had
You
cookies
did it
galore.
yours?
You did it, yours. You
Yeah.
did yours. We had cookies galore.
And I got married November 12th, 19...
That was after us, though. No, Annie was Rose, and then Annie, and then us.
Oh, okay.
All right, tell us about your wedding. How did you meet? You told us how you met.
Yeah,
All right, and tell us about your wedding. Did you?
our wedding was in Pittsburgh. It was at a Methodist church.
Why Pittsburgh? Is that where you were
That's
from?
where I was from. I grew up in Pittsburgh, and John's brother Joe and my sister Teeny were our attendants. That was all we had, was just the 2 of them. We didn't have a big bridal party. And the reception was at the Lasix restaurant in Oakland.
And was it a sit-down dinner?
There was a sit-down dinner in the afternoon, and then the reception was in the evening. So that they were all-day affairs then.
Right.
So what do you mean all day?
Well, we got married, no, ours was in the afternoon. We got married at 4:30 in the afternoon. And then the dinner was at the same place where we had the reception. That was the dinner, and that was just the bridal party. And the parents, that wasn't everybody. And then...
Is that like what you would call a rehearsal dinner now?
No.
Did you also have rehearsal dinners back then?
They weren't. It wasn't big. No, you
No.
went to the rehearsal, and then I think we went back to our house and just had something to eat. It wasn't a big deal like it is today. But then the reception was in the evening, and there again, it wasn't catered. It was that all my aunts and helped make the food and baked cookies for weeks.
So was it formal? Did you have to get really dressed up, or could you just wear dresses that you would wear to church?
Yes, basically. I don't think that they were
They didn't know what formal, informal,
At
what
that
back
time,
in the day.
slacks weren't in.
You never saw anyone in slacks.
Dresses, everybody had dresses on. Everybody wore dresses.
And then we went to New York, the city of New York, for our honeymoon. And spent a good deal of it with your relatives in New York. Right?
Yeah.
Had dinner with Carmela and dinner with Joe, and
Your godfather.
yeah, my godfather had a restaurant in New York. And
We
spent a lot
we stayed at the President Hotel, which has since been gone.
long gone.
We stayed at the Edison. Where we stayed.
In New York.
In New York.
Mary Ann's the
So how long,
godfather.
go ahead.
Mary Ann's godfather owned the Boston Oyster House on 8th Avenue, across the street from
The Port Authority.
the Port Authority bus terminal. And I can remember when we used to go there and sit at the bar, he used to try to feed her raw oysters. And she wouldn't have anything to do with that. And he said, here, you have them, because it'll put lead in your pencil.
All right, so how long was your honeymoon?
A week.
All right, and then who got married? And Evelyn.
Yeah.
All right, tell us about your wedding. Okay, Uncle Bill. We need your voice on
November
here.
12, 1954, by Reverend Morgan. The ceremony was at Reverend Morgan's home instead of in church. The immediate family was invited after the wedding to go to Homestead House in Washington on Maiden Street for dinner.
50 people in it.
How many?
50?
50. I think it was about 50.
Yeah.
Was there 50?
Yeah, Lizzie.
Counting my side and her side. My brother George was best man. Her sister Liz was maid of honor. It was a very short, sweet, satisfying wedding. And that was on a Friday. And we left and took a drive towards St. Louis, from St. Louis towards Chicago, Cleveland, and back to Washington. And that was our honeymoon. We were on, what, only 5 days because she had to be back at work. 5 days. Tuesday, we had to be back Tuesday.
Then the next month, December,
That's when I got married. That's what I was going to say, December 30th. That's when I got married. Right after they got married. Second time.
with Roy Ferguson.
Yeah, Roy Ferguson. Worley, what was his name? Worley or what?
Ferguson.
Ferguson? Oh, yeah, Worley Ferguson. Yeah.
You had two kids with him.
Yeah, I had Deborah Jane and Barbara Sue.
How old are they now?
Barbara Sue's, they're in their 40s. Barbara's about 41.
40-year-old.
About 42, 43. I'm 71.
Well, you're getting older, Rose.
I'm 71.
You don't
Any
look
grandchildren?
Did you go on the honeymoon?
No, I didn't go on the honeymoon.
You got married by Justice of Peace, right?
Yeah.
Did I stand up for you then or no? No.
No one stand up for me.
Okay.
Because we got
They
married.
all sat down for you.
Well, that's Uncle John, though.
Grandchildren, Aunt Rose.
4 grandchildren, right?
4 grandchildren. John Michael, Jasper Cole, Aunt Marie, and Sarah Brianna. With Barbara. Barbara's 4 kids.
And where does Barbara live?
In Pittsburgh.
Library.
And
Pittsburgh Library.
And where does Deborah live?
South Hills. Deborah lives in Lakeland, Florida.
Okay.
She's a school teacher.
All right, now we're going back to, we'll go, since Uncle John's to the left, tell us about your family and what they do.
Renee is in Fairbanks, Alaska. We took her to Fairbanks in August of 1994, and she loves it up there. And she's still single. She's an assistant professor at the University of Alaska in Fairbanks. And she had a book published. She's had a lot of short stories published throughout the university magazines and so forth. Then we got a Our second daughter, Pamela, is married, and she lives right now she lives in Olathe, Kansas. We have 2 grandchildren, Kelly Colin Malloy, who is 11, Daniel Patrick Malloy, who is 6, and Pamela works for Vanguard Airlines. She's in a managerial position, and right now she just moved to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, where she is in charge of Vanguard operation in Florida. And she'll probably be moving to Florida sometime in March, right, would you say?
Mm-hmm.
She'll be moving to Florida in March?
That's what her plans are.
Okay, Aunt Evelyn, since you're next in the seating position, tell us about your family.
3 daughters, Judy, Joanne, and Janice. Janice is married to Ed Calhoun. They live in Westmoreland Township, Westmoreland County. 2 children, Edward is 9 and Sarah is 6. Sarah's 6. And Joanne just moved back from
Detroit.
From where?
Michigan.
Clarkston, Michigan. And she's married to Todd Markle, and he's the vice president of sales in marketing in Penn Plastic. And they have 2 children. Jason is 14 and Kristen is 12. And then Judy lives in Bridgeville, and she's married to Bob Terrell. And she has a stepson that's in college, Waynesburg College, his 3rd year. But she doesn't have any children of her own yet. She lost 2. And what else? We moved to South Hills 13 years ago. And Judy's an executive secretary for primary physician research.
And does Janice or Joanne work?
No. Janice does payroll for Studio 7. Joanne doesn't work. She quit her job. She worked for Beacon Industry, and she no longer decided she wanted to stay at home.
Okay.
Sorry. Oh, I worked for Bell Telephone from 50 to 58, and I didn't work for 22 years. When my mother passed away, we had 2 daughters at Waynesburg College, so I decided to go back to work, and they hired me at AT&T, and they gave me the 8 years from Bell. So I retired in 1998 from AT&T, was retired 3 years, and then I decided I wanted to go back to work. So now I'm working part-time for Laidlaw Industry, Laidlaw Transit, it's a taxi service. I work from 3 in the afternoon to 7, 4 hours a day, and I do work on 2 computers and put in the manifest sheets of the drivers, their time, their mileage. In other words, they don't get paid unless I put in the right hours. And how long they're on the road. And it's very good. It's time is goes fast, and they have 50 to 60 drivers, and I can't believe that those 4 hours go so fast. It's time to go home. And Bill just got a job for primary care physician where Judy works. They call and they desperately need a driver, so he's a drug man on Mondays and Wednesdays.
I call drugs. Legitimate drugs.
So you tell them what you do.
Well, I just deliver vaccine and blood, plasma, and medical records. That's it.
Marianne, before we go over here, don't you work?
Yes, I work part-time for Corporate Investigations. It's a company that does background investigations of employment applications for other companies.
She has it made, because if she don't want to go to work, she just tells them she's not coming in. So she works a couple days a week. I also have a part-time job. I work for Skill Path Seminars. They conduct seminars all over the world. And in fact, I just worked on the 10th I had a seminar at the Holiday Inn in Green Tree. I go there and I set up the booklets I hand out to the people that come to the seminars. I sit on my rear end and I get paid pretty good, $10 an hour for doing nothing. Then that's the only seminar I had for the month of January, but I have 4 seminars scheduled for the month of February. And that's all I need.
Good.
Pin money.
And of course we have Aunt Evelyn who bakes all her delicious cookies.
Well, when I left AT&T in 98, and I docked in 1999, my daughter said, Mom, since you're retired, why don't you bake cookies and sell them at work? I'll bring them in at work. Well, they knew at AT&T the type of cookies I always bake. So she put the list up and she called home and said, Mother, there's 400 dozen. I said, take that list down. I ended up that year baking 600 dozen of cookies. And then in 2000, I wouldn't send any down there because I knew I'd get a lot, and I ended up with 350. This year I decided to raise my prices on 2001 to 350 a dozen, and figuring out since I had a job now, since I started October 1st, if people wouldn't buy, I wouldn't have as many to make. But I still love to bake, and ended up over 400. I had to actually tell people I couldn't, even 3 dozen I could not do. But we survived it. Thanks to Bill. Bill helped me a lot. Judy helped delivering. And
Okay, now we move on to Uncle Sam now.
Oh boy.
How about your kids? Start with your kids.
Well, I have 5 children. Patsy, married to Chris Greer. They have 2 children, Gina and Michael.
How old are they?
Gina's 30 and Michael's 28.
Tell what they do.
And Gina works with children and youth.
Rose,
Michael
why don't you stop?
is a police officer.
Wait,
No, it's running.
it says record.
Yeah, and this is getting smaller. We're fine.
Michael is a policeman for South Strabane. And Patsy works at Chrysler Plymouth in Pleasant Hills. Carol works at St. Clair Hospital as a nurse.
How long have you been down there?
Carol's been there 27 years.
You'd be old.
Sammy has a bar and restaurant out on Henderson Avenue, Sam's Place. And he has 2 children. He's married to Cheryl Stamper, and they have 2 children, Jared, 15, Ethan, 12. And Mary Lou works for
help her, Mary Lou.
help me. Community Action, Southwest. And Paul works for Blue Cross in Pittsburgh. He lives in Pittsburgh now.
What's Mary Lou and Paul go to school?
And Mary Lou and Paul both went to Penn State.
Hey!
Patsy went to Pitt.
Yay!
Carol had nurses training at Pasadena Hospital. And Sam went to computer school in Pittsburgh. But he was drafted, he was classified 1A, and he told me he had a job waiting for him. When they found out he was classified 1A, they gave the job to somebody else. And here he was turned down from the Army because he had flat feet, so they wouldn't take him.
Tell them about Paul's job with, what's his name?
Oh, and Paul also teaches Dale Carnegie class, and he teaches at community college also, speaking class, public speaking class.
Who does he work for?
I told him, I said Blue Cross.
What about his reading? Does he still read to the blind?
Oh, yeah, and on Thursdays, he reads to the blind on the south side. He reads, goes there and reads the newspaper for them. Volunteer, as a volunteer. They love him. They think it's so nice that he's doing that. You know. They just love him. And every time when he calls and says he's going to be late, they wait for him. that he goes every Thursday to read to the blind.
And isn't he working on his master's?
And he's working on his master's through college in, is that Arizona?
University of Phoenix.
Yeah, University of Phoenix.
On the internet.
On the internet, uh-huh.
You might add that Paul's supervisor told Mary Ann that he's one of the best Dale Carnegie instructors that they have.
Takes after his dad, that's why.
Sam just retired from Legion, right? That's still in Legion.
And Sam worked at Jessup for 42 years, and then after he retired, he worked at the Legion as a in finance
17 years.
for 12 years, wasn't it?
Wow.
Then you worked as bar steward for how many? 3 or 4?
Easy, because
Yeah.
I retired in 80.
He retired in 80. And then you
So we
retired
just-
from the Legion in 2001. Was it 2001 or 2000?
Yeah.
2000.
What did you do while you were at Jessup?
I worked in electric furnace. I was a molder, and then ended up being a ladleman.
He was a flunky.
The ladleman pours the hot metal. I poured the metal out of the furnaces and put it in mold sizes. And then they roll it out into sheets or bars. I got the job back in 1941. Then my buddy, Tom Skerritt, got drafted in the service in 42, and he didn't know how to go to Pittsburgh and that, and I took him to Pittsburgh on a trolley. And then I enlisted in the Air Force, and they took me the same day I enlisted. I called home, told my dad and them I was going to the Army, and I told my brother Bill I was leaving from the Pennsylvania station. He brought my mother and my dad, and they came down to see me off. And here they go to Pennsylvania station, and there's no soldiers leaving there. And they found out it was Lake Erie, and he came and he chewed me out. Said, I said, I don't know where I'm going. So I enlisted in the service in 42. Then I got out, and I was in October 42, and then I got out in February of 46. I spent 46 months in the service. And I get out of there, and then I met my honey here, and then I was the only one in the family got married in the Catholic Church. She was Catholic, and she said, "You're going to marry me, you had to change." And there wasn't no argument, because I wanted her for my wife, and so I changed and became a Catholic, and I'm not sorry I did.
That's nice.
You want to talk about the war at all? Or?
Well, I spent all my time in the United States. I was lucky. I went to Fort Meade for my boot training. Didn't have much of training in, and went to Wright Field. That was my headquarters in Dayton, Ohio. And then sent me to North American Factory up in Kansas. I became a B-25 crew chief. And they said, "See that plane out there? 609 was the airplane number." Said, "Wherever that plane goes, you go with it." So I was lucky. It went to Dayton, Ohio, Wright Field. Then from there, I flew all over the United States in that airplane. We used it for an experimental purpose. We had rockets on the wings, and we had big bombs in the bomb bay. We used to drop these bombs in the desert down in Florida and out in California. Eglinville, Florida, and Muroc Lake, California. I think that's Air Force. They call it Edwards Air Force now. So these bombs we used to drop, they used to build big bomb fires out in the desert. And I had these scientists and that riding in the airplane with me, and they'd drop this bomb. Now watch it. Back then we had the television in there, and we watch it go. It was a radar television, and we watch it fly through the air. And then to find out how much of a degree that would miss the target. So then they will go back to the air base again. They'll readjust the mechanism on the nose of the airplane, maybe so many degrees to the left, so many degrees. Then we'll go back up the next day, with the weather permitting, and we'll drop a bomb again. And so that's how we perfected it. Then we sent fighter planes over to Italy, Germany, and had to drop over there. And they said they worked to get back, and they tried the rockets, and they tried the bulbs. They said when they came back, they said they worked perfect. So we lucked out pretty good on that. Then I used to have captains, lieutenants, majors, colonels, generals, all up fly that B-25, and I rode with them all. We rode to Washington, D.C., and there was a short runway. And this major was pilot. They come in, they dropped the plane. The plane caught on fire, blew out the wheel, buckled the airplane all up, and I had a captain that just got back from combat duty, Captain Russell. He said, he put his arm around me, he said, Sam, if I would have done that, they would have busted me and kicked me out of the Army. Major, about a month later, the major got a promotion to the colonel, and he asked me, he said, what happened? I said, well, Major, you lost your attitude, you probably pulled back the throttle, see, he cut his plow on that because he misjudged your approach, and you don't have so much room to land your airplane. We would have went in the lake, in the river there, so he had to make sure he got down. So I had a couple close calls with him, and otherwise we survived.
Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to start with... Oh, sorry.
Yeah, the ships which you haul.
Well, we hauled all the...
You can say where you were, because I don't know.
I was in the Merchant Marine, and I sailed, the first ship I sailed was an old Hog Islander. I was a fireman, and I was shoveling coal to build up the steam engine. And we went to Cuba, and our steering mechanism broke, and they had, we were on a 48-hour alert because there was a submarine in the waters where our ship was. But we got out of there safe enough. Then I got on a ship in New York, and we were at the Battle of the, I can't think of it, in Naples, Italy. We were in Naples, Italy.
Sicily invasion.
Yeah, the invasion of the big invasion over there.
D-Day.
I was in a convoy of ships, and before that, I was on a ship. We were in a convoy, and somehow or other we got waylaid, and we ended up in Sardinia, Italy, and we were in the middle of a Navy fleet, and they moved us into Sardinia, Italy, out of the Navy fleet, and we were there in port for 2 weeks, and we just had a ball. And I was with four other men, 3 from Washington and 1 from Houston, PA, and we all became very good friends. And we all got the same tattoo on our arms. And I've had some close calls, but we were in Naples, Italy, and we were being scraped by the German Air Force, and I ran through the hallway trying to knock out the lights, and they had steel girders, steel covers on them, and I was hit with my fist till I woke up and realized that you can't knock the lights out. I had to close the porthole doors, and we, like I say, we ended up sailing several different types of ships. I must have sailed 13 different types of ships.
What did you haul?
Pardon?
What did you carry?
We hauled, mostly we hauled tanks and all war supplies. Then the last 3 years I sailed T2 tankers, and we hauled high octane gasoline. And we were on, I know I was on a ship, a tanker. We went through the Suez, we went through the Panama Canal. We were on our way to the Japanese theater of war we had a full load of high octane gas. And I was the chief pumpman on this tanker. In fact, I was in charge of loading and unloading the tanker. And when we got out of the Panama Canal on our way down into the Pacific Theater, the Japanese surrendered. So then we were told, I dumped, I don't know how many gallons of high-octane gasoline. We unloaded the ship right into the ocean. We got rid of all the high-octane. Then we had to ballast the ship with, we just pumped in water from the ocean, and we sailed back to New York. But that was when Japan surrendered. Then I came home. I guess I was home for 2 or 3 months, and then I went back in. And I finally quit sailing Father's Day of 1951.
So total, how many years were you in it?
I was in off and on 8 years, from August of 43 to Father's Day of 1951.
And what do you have to do with it now? Aren't you affiliated with it?
Well, no. All we did, I formed a Merchant Marine Veterans Organization in July of 1995. I was the first president for the first 3 years. I'm just now a assistant news editor, and I'm in charge of the advertisers of our newsletter. I'm also vice commander of the American Legion Post 760 in Bethel Park. I'm a member of the American Legion. Sam's also a member of the American Legion in Washington.
Uncle Bill, were you in the service?
Yes.
Do you want to tell us about yours?
I was in the Navy during the Korean conflict. I joined the Navy in 1950. Served my boot camp at Great Lake, Illinois from September until December, and we were shipped out to California, Treasure Island. And then I was processed there and then shipped to Sasebo, to Tokyo, Japan. And from there I took a train to Sasebo, Japan to meet my ship, which was the ARH-1 USS Jason. It was an auxiliary hull repair, which tied up a dock, and if a ship of the size of ours, which was about 536 feet long, or smaller, was damaged, like destroyer tender, they pull up alongside and we repair them, regardless of what problem they had other than a major hull repair. And we would go up to the war zone every month, stay there at the end of the month until the beginning of the next month, mainly because the Commodore on our ship wanted to get out of paying income tax. When you were in the war zone during that time, after World War II, you didn't have to pay income tax. But our major conflict was we were during the Incheon invasion of Korea. We were there. We fired our guns, but only for beach support. Then we backed off and we took care of any ship that might have been damaged or they needed help. We spent most of our time in Sasebo, Japan, and then Yokosuka, Japan. And I came back to California with discharge, 54. And I worked in California for a while for a furnace cleaning company. And a friend of mine and I, we decided to come back home, so I drove back home and met Aunt Ev again, and then we got married. Got engaged and got married.
So you knew her before the service?
I met her in 1950. I met her in 1950. Probably was March of 1950. Our first date was April Fool's Day. And I called her up for a date on April 1st of 1950. And she thought that I was playing an April Fool's joke, but she was ready to go when I got there. But then we dated up until September of 1950 when I went to the service. And then we communicated a little and then off and on. And then I didn't communicate for a while. And then when you went down to see my mother one time, wanted to know where I was. I was in San Diego at the time. Then I got discharged and I came home. And we started dating again.
Did you date anybody while you was gone?
Oh, I don't want to
Yeah. So what about other brothers? Were they in the service, any of your other brothers?
No.
No?
not mine. I mean, I don't know about Bill.
No, he meant your
Your
family.
family.
Your family.
After you got married, you still
All right. So now let's start with, we'll start with Uncle Sam, and we'll start with, we'll start with you giving us one word about what you remember about Uncle Bill, since he was the oldest brother.
Lord, he,
How old was Uncle Bill when you were born? Give us
Well,
a time frame. I don't have a time frame.
well, he,
We can get all that from the,
when was he born? 19. Joe was 1914,
In
so
my
he
Bible, Joanne.
must be about 1912, so I'll be born 1921, so I'll be about 7, 8 years old. But I remember him working at the Maytag store. He used to paint the Maytag washers.
who owned the Maytag store?
Wilson Electric.
Wilson Electric back then.
Not bad.
No, he just worked there.
And Montgomery was one of the
Hold up
big
the
ones.
Bible for a minute.
But,
Yeah, hold it up.
Yeah. Oh.
But they used to get us up there to sand the galvanized tub, the square washers, and we used to sand all the old paint and that off of it, and then he used to paint them, make them look like new. We used to sell them to people like new wash machines. They didn't know the difference. And I used to put them back on it. He used to have a Chevy pickup, Chevy coupe. We took the trunk off, we put a wooden platform on that. We used to put 3 wash machines on that.
What are you looking for?
And I used to go to Mariana, Clarksville and all that and ask people if they wanted to try this Maytag out. I said, you don't have to buy it, let me put it in your house. So we used to put these wash machines in people's houses. If they didn't have electricity, we had gasoline washers. So they put them in there for a week, 2 weeks later. My brother, Bill, would go down there and they'd sell it to the customers. Well, if they didn't want it, then we'll take the washer out and we'll take it to another home. So that's how my brother, Bill, he used to work up there, and then he used to be a salesman. He was a combination of both. And he used to be the leading salesman for years up there, because he had his brothers, me, my brother Joe, Johnny, Pat. We all worked. So then when I went to service back in 42, then he passed away while I was in the service. Then Pat took over. They opened the store down on South Main Street. And we were supposed to do like Andy Brothers, all the brothers be incorporated in it, and it never did materialize, but my brother made out like a bandit, God bless him. And so me and Joe used to work all the time. And I used to work at the Jessup Night Turn and go up there and help him deliver refrigerators, wash machines, dryers, everything. I used to work at home, make kids with my wife, and work at the Jessup. And so I got 3 jobs. I had you never stopped working. I had a busy schedule then, and then trying to play a little bit of softball. I used to manage softball team, basketball team, and football team. We had a team in a football YMCA league. Brady Marble, he hated us because we was on the other side of the track. So we had a bowl game, championship game with us and West Washington, Kenny Kears and all.
Anna has the Bible now, the family Bible, so she's going to give.
Okay, it was Valeria Manfredi, which is the same as Bill. August the 29th, 1911, he was born. And he died February the 2nd, 1946. He was 34 years old.
And before we go on to Uncle John, we got 3 new guests, 3 more family members.
Two more.
2 more family. And who are you, pretty little girl?
Kristen Merkel.
Who?
Kristen Merkel.
Tell us who you are. Who's your grandma?
My grandma is Evelyn Sovic. And your friend
And
Emily. Roswell.
How old are you, Emily, honey?
11.
How old are you, Kristen?
12.
Thanks for joining us.
Joanne. How old am I? I'm soon to be old. And I'm Joanne Merkel, Evelyn's daughter.
And Bill.
And Bill's daughter, Evelyn and Bill's daughter. We're here without the men, so we've been shopping all day. So why don't we talk?
All right, Uncle John.
My brother Sam was saying about working on with his wife making kids. He was trying to keep up. He was trying to keep up with his dad because my dad had 2 different jobs, and he kept my mother busy because my mother had 16 kids and a miscarriage. So of the 16 kids that my mother had, 11 lived to grow up. And like I said, our oldest brother Bill died when he was 34 years old. Then about the Maytag business, when I quit sailing in 1951, I went to work with Pat up at Main Street. I was supposed to be a partner, and that fell through also. And then in February of 1952 is when I went to work for Bankers Life and Casualty Company, selling White Cross hospitalization. And that's where I met Mary Ann in February of 1952, and we had our first date April 27th of 1952. And I wanted to get married that summer, but she said no. Her mother said no, not until you're 20 years old. So she turned 20 January 13th on 1953. So January 25th, 1953, right after her 20th birthday, we got married.
All right, now back to Aunt Evelyn. When did Uncle Bill die? Do you have it in your book?
Yes, February 2nd, 1946.
Which would have meant he was how old?
34.
And what did he die of?
Right.
Kidney disease. Bright's disease. Kidney.
That's nephritis. Kidney failure.
Okay, so Aunt Evelyn, since we're on you, what's one thing? Do you remember Uncle Bill, or was he?
I don't remember him too much, but I remember I was in school, and I used to have to run down to school, pick up the 2 kids, and bring them down my house on the street.
What 2 kids?
Sally and Gloria. And we brought them down to my house.
All right.
Now, do you want the names of everybody and the date they were born?
All right, let's go back to Aunt Rose and Aunt Mary Ann, see if they remember Uncle Bill while we're there.
Okay. Do you remember Bill?
Do you have one word to say about Bill, Aunt Rose?
Yeah, he used to work. Didn't he work at Maytag? Yeah. Yeah, he
And-
worked at Maytag.
Aunt Mary Ann, do you
I
remember?
wasn't, no, I wasn't
You
in the
weren't?
family then.
Okay. All right, Uncle Bill. Do you remember Uncle
No, I
Bill?
don't.
All right, and
I
now?
remember Uncle Bill because he told me that if I studied real hard, that he would send me on to college.
And did he?
Well, he died.
Oh. And Nell, do you
I
remember?
remember him delivering a stove to my mother and dad, their Maytag stove. And he had it on a truck and carried that thing on his back. Carried that. And my father was having connected fits because he said, "My goodness, how can you do that?" And he loved that stove in there by himself. Wouldn't let anybody help him.
All right, Aunt Evelyn, tell us about Uncle Bill's family. Any type of dates you have of the dates they got married. Is that in there, or
Okay.
whenever they were born? And his 2 children, Sally and Gloria.
I don't have. I have this.
Why don't you read what you want out of the Bible? The floor is
Well,
yours.
my mother and dad were married September 7th, 1910. My father's best man was Frank Manfredi, and my mother's bridesmaid was Mary Cornetta. And my dad was born December 17th, 1881, and my mother was born Maria Serafini Comforte, October 4th, 1894. And my dad came to America in 1900 from Samango, you speak Italian? Province of Catanzaro.
Catanzaro.
Yeah, Tamango, D-A-R-Q-U-I-N-O. And my mother came to America in 1904. And her maiden name was Rose Magnone.
Her mother.
Her mother's name was Rose Magnone, and her mother died in January 2nd, 1952, and she was 87 years old.
Nunny, didn't they used to call her?
Yeah, we used to call her Nunny.
What about Frank Comfort? What's his name?
Tony Comfort.
Tony
She had a brother, Tony, and she had a brother, Frank.
Yeah, Tony Comfort.
Right. My dad died February 12th, 1956, at the age of 74.
Yeah. And your mother was 86.
My mother died.
She wasn't when she died.
Yeah, 86.
She wasn't. Was she 86? Was she?
Yeah.
I didn't think she was 86.
She died in 1980, March 23rd, Jenny's birthday.
Yeah.
What year was she born?
1894.
1894.
Yeah, she was 1980. 6 years here, 86.
And Tony Comfort was her brother.
Right.
Yeah,
That's,
I remember Tony well.
you can give this.
And I can give names of all the kids. There was Giuseppe. He was born September 7th, 1913, and died September of 1914. And then my brother Joe, that I remember, was born July 29th, 1915. He died August 9th, 1991. Then Giovanna, which would be Jenny, was born March the 23rd, 1916. She died June the 21st, 1987. And after her came Frank, and he was born January 12th, 1918, and he died May the 1st, 1918. And then came Antonio Pasquale, which would be Patsy. He was born July 2nd, 1919. He died June the 5th, 1991. And then came Salvatore, and he was born July 7th, 1921. And then there was Maria, which we called Mary. She was born July 5th, 1922, and died September 22nd, 1993. Then we had a sister named Dominica Carolina, and she was born July 13th, 1924, and she died December 1st, 1924. And then we had Giovanna Thomas, which is Johnny, was born August the 26th, 1925. Then there was Anna. She was October 22nd, 1926, and died August 6th, 1991. And then was Elizabeth. She was born July 29th, 1928. She died June 18th, 1987. And then there was Rose, which she was born March the 22nd, 1930. And then there was Pete. He was born July 8th, 1931. And he died October 1st, 1931. And then there was Evelina. She was born April 12th, 1933. And then there was Nancy Jean. She was born May 25th, 1935, and she died November 25th, 1935. So that's it.
An electric company at Plate. He had a second-hand store on Chestnut Street, right around the corner from Wilson Electric Company, where we used to, when we took in trade-ins on Maytags, we used to sell them, fix them up and sell them. And then the M&M Maytag, which started by Pat and Hazel, that was an offshoot of that second-hand store.
Is this once they were married?
Pat and Hazel got married.
And then they
That was
opened
5
M&M?
years. Pat and Hazel got married 5 years after Bill died.
In 51.
That's right.
And that's when they opened M&M Maytag.
Right.
And that's when you worked on it, Uncle Sam.
Yeah.
And your children worked up there, didn't they, Uncle Sam?
Yeah, well, Sammy used to.
They come up, yeah, but they tried to get them in there, but they weren't interested.
Sammy liked to play around.
Huh? I also worked at the Maytag. I used to do bookwork. I worked 5 to 11 at Bell Telephone, And I used to go up there and work from 1 to 4. And my brother Pat constantly reprimanded me because I had poor handwriting. I'll never forget it. He said I had the most horrible handwriting. And I used to work with his wife Hazel and do ledgers and do the books. And work and go to work at Bell Telephone. He said I needed to do it. And my husband Bill worked also for M&M. He helped deliver.
Mary Ann.
I don't know.
This is when Jenny retired from Gimbel's. And this is, everybody was alive at that time except for Bill.
That's my grandma.
I'll hold him.
That's gonna be hard to do. That's my grandmother, and my mother, and my dad.
Who's that? On whose side?
That's my mother's mother.
What's her name?
Comfort.
All right. Who's the next picture?
That's that's Mary, my sister Mary, and her husband Francis.
All right. Here's another one. Wait, let me just zoom in on this one. Say that again.
This is my engagement picture, the wedding picture I had taken when I got married in November 12, 1954.
So that's Evelyn.
Evelyn, right.
And here's
my oldest brother.
Who's he standing in front of?
Trophies. He had a lot of trophies. I don't know why. You know why Bill had all these trophies in front of him?
I had a bowling team. I used to run a bowling team.
Who are you?
Sam.
Manfredian.
Well, they can't see you.
Yeah.
That's on that.
I'm who you are.
Much better.
And they used to sponsor bowling teams. But I don't know about Bill.
Wedding announcement. Evelyn Sovit's wedding announcement. This is, all right, this is, that's what I said already. Sadie's mother. She's a comfort, and her grandmother.
My grandma, my great-grandma, yeah, this is my mother's mother.
Wait, this is a picture of you, Aunt Evan, your,
majorette.
Okay, she was a majorette for Washington School District.
For 4 years.
For 4 years.
That is my grandmother, my mother's mother, and her brother, Frank. He was for Comfort, yeah, he was the youngest.
All those are from my father's side. We're going to leave those there.
Front row is Jenny, Grandma Manfredi, John T. Manfredi. The back, Mary, Joe, Evelyn, Sam, Ann, Pat, and Elizabeth. Let me get it focused before we do anything. Okay.
St. Paul's Cathedral in Pittsburgh, where Sam and I were married.
Yeah. The father of our company. Yeah. He's the father of the company.
And the hour was really long, real long hour.
He was.
Eleanor and Sam's wedding.
Right.
What day?
September 13th, 1947.
And here's
Not me.
who's that?
And that's up here is Grandma.
Since the night before the wedding.
Yeah, this is the night before the wedding. He stayed at my friend's house.
My favorite.
Oh, Uncle
We
Sam
weren't
did.
allowed to be together, you know. He wasn't allowed to see me till the next day. And this is Grandma Manfredi, and up here, Grandma Manfredi and Grandpa, and Billy's mom, your grandma. They sat on the porch while we went to church. They didn't go to church. They wouldn't go to church. They wouldn't go in our church.
Why? Because you're getting married in Catholic.
Because we were a Catholic church, and they wouldn't. Grandma never would step foot in our church. You know, and she didn't go to Patsy's wedding either.
All right. So what other
My
pictures
Patsy.
can we
I brought her down
photograph?
this one.
Oh. That's you coming down the aisle.
Yeah. With my dad. Mm-hmm.
Bill was inducted into what the Washington's Hall of Fame.
And this is outside of the church. Well, that's another one like this one.
Yeah.
But
That's your Eleanor's maid of honor.
maid of honor, and
And her name is
Helen Crowley. Well, the town hall was then.
Oh, yeah.
And Louis Arso was best man. This is Grandma and Grandpa Manfredi outside, on our, outside of our house down in Pittsburgh the day we got married. And,
To the right, that's the wedding picture.
and this is our wedding picture. We had it taken at a studio in East Liberty. And these are my, and the bridesmaids. My sister's not in that. She was junior bridesmaid.
We're just going to see him here in his uniform.
In his uniform, his army uniform.
25 years.
Mm-hmm. And 35th anniversary. I don't know what I did with 30. Somewhere there. 35th. Then our 40th. Okay.
You're looking good at 40 years. Patsy and Chris, their first sons.
The first son, our first son. They were married March 5th, March 6th. I'm trying to think of 1970. They were born, they were married November 17th, 1984.
Where was they married?
They were married St. Hilary. Here's St. Andrew.
Well, they're always.
Yeah, he had,
What?
I'm trying to think. Carol was maid of honor. Then Gina, Mary Lou, Aggie is her name, and Chris. And then the boys were Sam, Michael was in it, and Billy, and I'm trying to think, Paul, and Gene, I forget his last name. This other, this Patsy was in it. I don't remember who that was.
It didn't fit her.
Yeah.
She wanted to wear it in the worst
This is John and Mary Ann on their wedding day on
January 25th, 1953.
where?
At the John Wesley Methodist Church in Pittsburgh.
Very nice. Tell about it, Aunt Mary.
What do you want me?
This is my wedding day.
This is my wedding invitation.
Mailed to my house, talks about you, and he's supposed to tell you that he delivered mail to my house. You must be working with his wife. She's late.
Oh, really? But it was Nunny's birthday. We had down at the mansion house. Remember that?
Yeah.
And wait, there was one thing.
Look it up.
Having a baby.
This is at the mansion house for Grandma's birthday.
I don't remember what year it was then, too.
It's okay.
He told me, so I'll tell her something in California. And then she ended up buying it at the Ames. She wasn't home.
Another one of her too.
And that's when he said, he came inside, he brought the box in for me, and brought the rest of the mail in.
Yeah.
And he started telling me about you. And then he started asking me about Sam's place. He said, boy, they serve good food there. And then he started making some different names, Polish names. And he said, he lives out past Rose Hill School. I said, I went to school there when I was a kid. So I said, we were told not to accept the package when it came. He came the next day and picked it up and took it back to the post office. We didn't even open it.
Yeah.
Because he told me, he said, call me and I'll come pick it up.
That's Uncle Bill and Aunt Evelyn eating. And I don't know who's on the other side of the table.
I can't see.
Mary Ann, John, Evelyn, Bill. Grandma's serving.
And this
I do this.
Dad, Benny Trapezzano holding Sylvia Ann,
How come you don't read it?
and Uncle Bill.
How come you don't read it?
I don't know.
Aunt Mary Ann and Uncle John.
Harvey and the turkey.
We got one. We just don't use that.
Just
Let's say it. Oh, is it on?
Okay, that's Grandma and Grandpa Manfredi holding Sylvia Ann Trapezzano
Write your name, let me give it to
At Grandma's house?
at Grandma's house.
So Michael's birthday, January the 14th.
How much did you send?
Monday,
How much did you send?
$10. $10 a piece.
Did you just sign it, or did you write the whole thing?
Jenny
I
and
just got
Phil.
my name. Secretary. Secretary signed the check.
We come for dinner one day between Christmas and New Year's every year.
Who's that? Oh, I remember. We ought to talk about that tradition.
You know, we didn't talk about that.
We're down to Uncle Joe.
That's Uncle John in the Merchant Marine.
That's our 50th anniversary. Now we're at Uncle Joe. What do you remember about Uncle Joe, Uncle Pat? I mean, Uncle John.
Uncle Joe was very active in supporting. Uncle Joe was very active in sports in Washington County. In fact, when he worked at the Jessup Steel Company, he was very active in managing the Jessup Steel Company baseball team.
Okay, now, Aunt Evelyn, what do you remember about your brother?
My brother Joe, I remember, and I remember going to Canonsburg Armory and collecting tickets when they had the Globetrotters down there. I worked in the reception stand where I collected the tickets. What do they call it? Not reception. Admissions. And I collected the tickets for the Globetrotters.
And Uncle Bill, one word about what you remember about Uncle Joe?
Manager of Specialty Steels, Jessup Steel.
All right. And Uncle Sam, what do you remember about Uncle Joe?
We had a donut shop, Krispy Kreme, and now I see it's made the headline. It's all, everybody likes that donut. So we had it up on Chestnut Street. So we used to, and him and I used to run baseball teams and softball teams together.
All right. Now, what do you remember? What do you remember about Charles?
Sonny.
All right, and tell us about his family.
I don't know too much about him. He's working out. He used to work at the Jessup with his dad, and
he retired from the Jessup.
Yeah. So now he's working for Sam's Club, or Walmart. He's working both places. One time it's Walmart, next time it's Sam's Club. I don't know, he's back at Walmart. Did he?
Yeah.
I remember Joe when he used to bring when customers used to come in, and he used to bring them down my mother's house, and he used to
Spaghetti dinner.
have spaghetti dinners for them.
Frank Rackley, president.
And then we got some beautiful thank you gifts.
All right. So, Aunt Evelyn, since we're on you, what do you remember about Jenny?
Jenny, I remember Jenny because her and I had pretty much the same likes. She loved to sew, and she taught me a lot about sewing. And I remember I think she got me my first sewing. Talked me into sewing for W.T. Grant. I used to alter suits. And then from there, I used to do alterations for Imperial Cleaners. At the same time, I got to stay at home, and they would bring them to my house because I took care of my mother, and they would pick them up. So it was a job that I could do at home. And she was very good seamstress, and anytime I had a problem sewing, I always run to her, and she'd tell me what I was doing wrong or what I needed to do. And she was my good friend.
What's the score now?
All right.
Still 3-3.
Aunt Rose, do you remember Joe or Jenny? Anything about either of them?
Joe used to work at the Jessup, used to be the boss.
And what about Jenny?
Jenny,
She's your big sister.
Okay, Uncle John, what do you remember about Jenny?
Me?
Yes.
She was like a second mother to all us kids.
yeah, she was second mother.
And she took care of us. She ironed our clothes and
All that good stuff, huh?
all the good stuff.
She
Right?
sewed my dresses. Jenny sewed my dresses for me.
All right, so who was after Jenny? Help me out.
Mary.
Mary. What do you remember about Mary, Aunt Evelyn?
Mary went to beauty school. She was going to be a beautician. And she used to do my hair, do perms, and she was a year older than her. She was a good cook.
And Uncle Bill, what do you remember about Aunt Mary?
I remember, main thing I remember is the nut fruit cake she used to make at Christmas time all the time. It was very good. I enjoyed going up there.
Ask my wife what she remembers about my sister Mary.
We were pregnant together all the time.
Mary, what do you remember?
together all the time.
Really?
How about him?
I had Patsy, and she had Bernard. She had Bernard first, and I had Patsy. Then,
And I was in there.
Yeah, but you weren't with one of them having you though.
then she had, no, I had Carol, and she had Danny.
Joe and Danny.
Later. And Uncle Francis was so upset because he wanted a girl so bad. And he said, he loved her. He used to come up the house and play with her all the time. He just loved her. He would say, I wanted a girl. So then I had Tammy, and then she had another boy. And then I had Mary Lou, and they had another boy. Well, that was too much for him. He couldn't handle that.
So what do you remember about Joe and Jenny? Do you remember anything about Uncle Joe, were you?
I remember Uncle Joe going down to Grandma's house every Sunday for dinner.
And what about, well, that's a good one, his dog. What about Aunt Betty?
Aunt Betty, she didn't, Grandma always had a plate of spaghetti for her, would send it up with him, and she wouldn't eat it down.
She was always a loner.
She would stay home.
And what about Jenny?
Jenny, she was my favorite. She, when I met Uncle Sam, she was the first one to greet me and accept me into the family. And she said to me, anything you need, or if there's anything you want to buy, I'll go with you. She went uptown with me, and I opened up the charge in Lang, and she bought me a negligee and nightgown, you know. And,
Ooh, baby.
and your mother had them for me, and she was the greatest. I mean, I got along so good with her.
How about that pie she used to make?
Oh, she used to make the best pie.
Oh, she used to.
Oh, yeah, best.
All right.
My sister Mary made her favorite cabbage rolls.
Yeah, she's
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Aunt Marianne, what did you remember about Joe, Jenny, and Mary? Just a quick thing about all of them.
Uncle Joe was our best man, and I always felt very, very close to him. He has a special place in our heart because it was through him knowing people that we were able to adopt our girls. He made the contact with the doctor that we adopted our girls through. So he always was very, very special to me because he helped me to get something that I wanted so much and couldn't have. And Jenny was just, Jenny too was so special. She was always so loving and always made you feel so welcome and so comfortable with her. And I can remember the first time, actually it was our first date, and we had gone out to eat, and then he took me to the house to meet Grandma and Grandpa. And your mother was there with you two girls. And
Which is Joanne and Rose.
I'm sorry, I forgot we were recording. And she just was always, like I said, made me feel helped me with different things, with sewing. When I'd get stuck on something I was making, I could always call on her and she'd correct my mistakes. And Aunt Mary, I remember too going to her house and always being very welcome there and enjoying. I always enjoyed everybody's babies because at that time we didn't have any, so it was always so much fun to be able to go because there was always a baby. Somebody was always expecting a baby. There was always a new baby in the family.
All right, back to Aunt Evelyn. Who's next, Aunt Evelyn? Why don't you give us the next three people?
Would be Lindsay, Annie, and...
I need Sweet and Lou.
Okay, where's the Sweet and Lou?
Right here.
Yeah.
Okay, Lucy, Annie, and Rosie. So what is it? What's something?
And I miss Ann because we were like a buddy-buddy.
See that?
I didn't work and she
Her
and my mother-in-law, she always took us to lunch. And she did a lot. She did a lot. She babysat a lot for me whenever Bill and I wanted to go out. And
Lucy? Aunt Liz?
Lizzie worked a lot.
I hear you like remote control. We get the remote for you?
Right now, didn't have this
And then Aunt Rose. What do you remember about Aunt Rose?
Rosie, I remember going out and driving, I think because I drove the car, and we'd go to dances. Rosie never wanted to come home.
Yeah, I used to get all that.
And I used to get, and if I left her there, my dad used to get me because if I didn't get home 11 o'clock like I was supposed to, if it was a little bit after, I'd heard about it. And if I'd say couldn't get Rosie, but if I would have went home without Rosie, I would have got it too, so.
All right, Uncle Bill, you're next. What do you remember about this three?
Hey.
About Ann, like Nev said, that she babysat for us. She was a close friend and always had advice for us. And if she had something that she needed done or had a question, she would come to us for a little bit of advice also. So we exchanged a lot of advice. Aunt Lee, I remember her just being a hard worker at home, at her home. And Rose, I can't remember too much about Rose other than she used to agitate me, and we're Aunt Deb's close to the factory.
Oh, yeah.
All right, Uncle
And I used to
John.
drive her to work once in a while.
Yeah.
Uncle John, real quick, what do you remember about Ann, Liz, and Rose?
Ann, Liz, and Rose. Well, Ann she always worked. She worked at the Bell Telephone. And
Did she work after she had her children?
Oh, yeah.
yeah, she kept working at the Bell Telephone all the time. And she was a good housekeeper and a good mother. She spoiled her kids royal. And Evelyn,
No, Lizzie.
Lizzie was married to Benny Trapezzano, and
She worked at the hospital.
Lizzie was busy with Nunny Trapezzano kept my sister Lizzie busy.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot about it.
And Nunny Trapezzano ruled the roost, and my sister Lizzie was kept very busy because of Nunny Trapezzano. And my sister Rose, she always liked to sleep. My sister Rose, she worked at Dagger Valley Glass Company, and
Okay, Uncle Sam, what do you remember about Ann, Liz, and
Well,
Rose?
Liz worked at the hospital, he tell you. She worked at the telephone up there with the
Switchboard operator.
How many years she worked up there, Ev?
she worked at Bell.
Yeah, she worked at Bell too.
Yeah, but I mean,
I don't remember. Quite a few years.
yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
what about Liz? Oh, that was Liz. What about Ann?
And she was like a tomboy. She used to come down and just ball down and play ball with me. And, us boys used to play softball and her and the Raleigh girls, Isabel and Rose, Oliver's Costella's mother's name, and Allie Scarriott. We used to have about 7 or 8 girls and about 7 or 8 us boys. We used to play softball together down at the Jessup Ball Ground.
Okay, and what about Aunt Rose? What do you remember about her?
Well, she is a queen bee at home. She used to work at the Tiger Valley, then she'd come home and she'd take a nap. Somebody else had to do the housework. Right, Ro?
Yeah. Yes, the
All right.
sleep when I get home from work.
Aunt Eleanor, what do you remember about Aunt Ann, Aunt Liz, and Aunt Rose?
Yeah, and I always remember her as a real hard worker. She worked with Dick, cleaning offices, plus working at the Bell. And her house was immaculate. I remember she was dying of cancer, and we went up there to visit her.
Do you know what type of cancer she died
Liver.
Colon cancer. Colon cancer. And she spilled something on the floor, and she'd get down on her hands and knees and scrubbing that floor, and she was dying. I mean, she was really sick. And I yelled at her. I said, Ann, what are you doing? Because I had brought her some spaghetti up. And she said, oh, I have to get that off the floor. I can't leave that on the floor like that. I have to get it off.
And what about Aunt Liz?
And Liz, I left her lemon pie. The best lemon pie
Did she?
of anybody. I never tasted lemon pie like hers.
We got a flash over here and looking at Evelyn saying, yeah, she did.
She did.
All right, and what do you remember about Aunt Rose?
Yeah, Rose. I always remember her staying in a bathroom for an hour, and every hair was in place. There was not one hair out of place. And she had on beautiful clothes. She'd wear dresses and high heels to work every day. And she, like she said, she would come home and take a nap. And everybody else was worse than her.
Why didn't you have to work? I don't understand
Because
that.
she paid more money than Ford.
I made a lot of money.
We had, everybody had to give money home when we worked. And she gave the most because she made the most in the factory. So my dad wanted her to make sure she got her rest.
She bribed him by paying more.
Yeah. That's right. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
All right.
Exactly it.
Aunt Mary Ann, what do you remember about the three? Ann, Liz, and Rose.
I think we must all have had the same impression of Anne, that she was such a hard worker. I can remember
We'd be at dinner.
when we were first married and lived. We were having a house built, so we lived with John's mother for the first 5 months we were married. And I can remember helping them do spring cleaning that year, because we got married in January. I thought they'd like to kill me. I mean, we scrubbed rugs and we worked, and they didn't do anything slow. Everything they did with speed. It was like somebody was chasing us. And I had always done a lot of work at home. I mean, we kept the house and everything, but I had never had to do anything so fast. But she was always working.
All right, what about Liz?
Wait a minute. Tell about Ann when we'd be there for dinner. Soon as we put the fork down, she took the dish out from under.
I remember that.
Smoking cigarettes especially. She was always emptying ashtrays. Oh, yeah. She couldn't stand cigarettes in the ashtray.
All right, Liz.
Aunt Liz was always very quiet and also worked hard. And as John said, she was real involved with her mother. They lived together, and so she always had so much to do, taking care of her children and the house and Nunny Trevisano. So she was always real busy. And
What about Aunt Rose?
Aunt Rose, I just remember her from being, just being there. I remember her when with her children, when her children were little, and how much she fussed over them and loved her children.
That's nice.
That was a closed book with Rosie.
All right, back to Aunt Evelyn. Who were the next three?
Next one was I'm the end.
Oh, you're the aunt.
I don't want to hear about me.
All right. Uncle Bill, what do you remember about your wife? She doesn't count.
About her.
Yeah.
What a good dancer she was.
Woo, baby.
It is.
Aunt Rose, what do you remember about your sister?
Evelyn.
Yes.
Yeah, we used to go to dances together. And then when we used to take me home, and I didn't want to go home. And we used to haul because we come home late. My mother used to haul us because we come home late.
And it was always your fault.
Yeah, it was all my fault because I wanted to stay. I didn't want to go home.
All right, Uncle John, what do you remember about Aunt Evelyn?
Well, what I remember for Aunt Evelyn, she used to go out and warm up my car every morning before I'd go to work. And I was able to go to work. I'd go out and my car was nice and warm. And she used to wash my car too.
Why?
Why? Because I used to let her use my car.
Oh.
Great big green Hudson. Remember that Hudson?
Mm-hmm. All right, Aunt Al, what do you remember about Aunt Al?
And I remember her practicing her cheerleading out in the yard, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, she used to go out there all the time and practice. And we got along real good. We had a real nice time. We got along real good when I married him.
Uncle Sam, what can you tell us about Aunt Evelyn? Any dirt, Karen? When did she learn how to bake those good cookies?
She learned that years ago, right, Ev?
Yeah.
I think her mother-in-law.
That was a tradition in the Manfred to eat sweets. Can't tell by looking at us.
So what do you remember about her?
I remember sneaking out of the house.
I can't remember that from Dad.
All right, Aunt Mary Ann, what do you remember about Aunt Evelyn?
Aunt Evelyn and I have always been very good friends. We're just about, she always kids me because I'm 4 months older than her. And she always lets me know that I'm the oldest. But we've always been very close to her children. I mean, have always had a very...
My mother's mother and dad lived up on a hill from where we lived. And my grandfather had one eye. He had one eye put out some way. And the funny thing about it, none of you, Grandma Comfort had one eye also. So husband and wife both had just one eye. And they had an outdoor oven where they baked bread. And I can remember going up to Grandma Comfort's house and sitting on the top step of the porch, and she'd have a homemade Italian bread out of that oven, and she'd sprinkle sugar over it and hand me a big handful of garlic cloves, and I used to chew garlic cloves and eat sugar bread. I can remember that to this day.
And what do you remember about your father and your mother?
My mother and father, well, my mother was a hard worker because she had a lot of kids, and she was a loving person. And my dad was a disciplinarian. He was strict, and you had to do what he said whether you liked it or not. And one day when I was 16 years old, and there's that walkway between the house and the garage where my brother Sam lives, and that must be, 3 feet wide. And I sassed my dad. I was 16, I sassed my dad. He had a broom in his hand. And he got the broom by the bottom part. And he would have broke my legs. He was going back and forth there, and my mother come out of the kitchen and grabbed the broom off of him and started hitting him with it. She said, "You're going to break that boy's legs." But I'll tell you one thing, I never sassed him ever again after that.
All right, Uncle Sam, what do you remember about your grandparents?
I know my granddad, he had
Now,
a
is
hard
this
hit.
on your mother's side or your father's
My
side?
mother's.
Your mother's side.
We don't know my dad's grandparents. We didn't have it. But my grandmother's grandfather, he had a hard hit. Every time you got there, he used to bump heads with you.
Yeah.
He used to love to do that. I mean, he hit you too. But
And what about your
it was good to us. And they talked Italian all the time, and that's how dumb we were. We didn't learn the Italian language. They was the only two that talked Italian. My mother and dad talked perfect English, and my grandparents said Italian. And they used to get mad at us because we didn't know what they were talking about. So then my mother and dad, like Johnny said, my mother was the opposite. My dad was really mean with us. We wanted to go out and play sports. He said, if you break your leg or you break your arm, I'll break the other one. As he always preached that to all of us. He said, don't you ever get hurt, because the other side will be hurt too.
All right, Aunt Evelyn, what do you remember about your parents and your grandparents?
I don't remember my grandfather at all. My grandmother, I remember she just had the one eye, and I don't know too much about her. My mother and dad, I know, was very strict. I know we went to church 3 times in a day on Sundays. Sunday morning, Sunday afternoons, and Sunday night. We always walked. And
We're called holy rollers.
yeah, we were called holy rollers. My dad was, like I said, was very strict. If it wasn't for my mother, I think a lot of us would have gotten a lot worse beatings than what we did because my mother stepped in, you know.
And what was the age difference between your parents about?
12 years, wasn't it? Daddy and the mother?
13 years, 81 and 94. 1881, 1894.
And what did your father die of? Do you remember?
Heart attack.
Heart attack. And what did your mother die of?
Didn't he die of
My father had,
bleeding ulcer?
on the death certificate for Daddy,
That's right.
well, they had congestive heart failure, they had
Bleeding ulcer.
Everybody died of heart attack.
bleeding peptic ulcer. There was 5 different things on his death certificate. You look at it. There were 5 different things on his that killed my dad. But I think the most important thing which caused my dad's downhill health problem was when my brother Bill died in 1946. My dad's health started changing because he grieved Bill's death very badly.
All right, so we had, your father had died. What did your mother die of?
Old age, mostly.
Old age?
She was a stroke.
She had a stroke.
She had a stroke.
Did she have breast cancer also?
No.
She had a breast removed. My mother had breast removed. The last 4 years, my mother was very downhill. I had to bath her, dress her, feed her.
Well, she had diabetes.
Sugar. She had sugar. And
Did she go blind?
She couldn't get around. She couldn't get around. Yeah, she had cataracts.
So back in those days, why did they take her breast off?
They removed the whole breast, just like they did.
So they thought she had,
breast cancer.
But it wasn't cancer.
She had a lump, but it wasn't cancer.
It wasn't cancer.
No,
It was-
they removed it.
They
They
said
don't know that because they
the
didn't, at that
bleeding-
time, they didn't check
There was a bleeding cyst in her nipple or
I don't
something.
know. I don't know.
I don't think they tested it as thoroughly as they did.
all right, so then we had,
Ann, when she
all right,
had,
so tell us about Aunt Ann's illnesses and what she died of.
she died of colon cancer, but she had, and I blame her doctor because he kept treating her, he kept told her it was ulcers.
She was supposed to have that liver disease, and she didn't even drink. He put-
Cirrhosis of the liver.
Oh, you don't have to drink
She
to
didn't
have
have
that.
that. She didn't have that.
Drink to have that.
No, she had colon cancer. She died of colon cancer.
But did she
Now,
also
Liz
have
had
breast cancer?
She had
breast
breast,
cancer?
she had a breast removed, yes, it was cancer.
Both of them?
No, one.
So
And,
it went from her breast, and then did it go in remission for a while?
well, they say after 5 years, if you know, after that, it's okay, everything's okay. You're done with it. So that is what she died from, because she died.
So she had breast cancer, and then years later she got colon cancer.
Right.
And then Aunt Liz.
And Liz had, her doctor kept, yeah, she died of stomach cancer, but they were treating her for nervous stomach because of her mother-in-law. Her mother-in-law was something
She
else.
was dominating.
Very dominating mother-in-law.
And what about Jenny?
I don't know actually what Jenny died from kidney failure. Yeah, she was on dialysis.
Renal failure, which is, well, she was on dialysis.
Peritoneal. She was on peritoneal.
I think too, which one, who died first? Lizzie.
Liz died.
Liz died.
And I think when I told your mother about Lizzie dying, I think that she gave up a little bit after that too.
Well, when Jenny had to go on dialysis, she told me that she said, I don't like to live like this. I don't like to have to bother my kids to take me all the time for this dialysis and stuff. I'd be better off dead. And I tried to encourage her and tell her, not to think like that. But I don't, I think she just more or less I gave up. I would say.
And what about Uncle Joe?
Uncle Joe had diabetes very bad, and
I didn't know that.
sugar. Oh yeah, everyone amputated his toes, right?
So he died from
Sugar.
And what about Uncle Pat?
Uncle Pat had massive heart attack.
And he died in his sleep.
Right, yeah.
He went to Mr.
They don't really know what he died from.
He was down the Alpine playing cards with me during the day. He used to do that all the time. And then at night he went home. That night he went home, went to Mr. Donut, had a coffee and donut, went home, went to bed, and just, that was it.
I think
He had a doctor appointment that morning. Billy went to wake him up, and that was it.
I think my brother had sleep apnea, just like I got. Pat snored very heavily, and I tried to get him to go to the doctor to have the sleep study done like I had done, where when you got sleep apnea, your heart stops at night. I know I had about 75 episodes when I was tested for my sleep apnea. Marianne used to stand and wait to see if I'm going to start breathing again. you stop breathing, you have what they call apnea. And I used to have 75 apneas a night. And that's when I've been on the breathing machine now since April of 1986. 15 years. It'll be 16 years.
Okay, we see you holding a cane.
This cane I'm holding now is because I had a hip replacement done on December the 3rd.
And why did you have that done? I mean, did you fall?
No, I guess arthritis set in and the cartilages wore out in the joint. I had both of my knee joints replaced 10 years ago. And when you get old, your parts wear out.
And what happened? I see your fingers. What happened to your fingers?
Oh, that you got to be smart. You got to be smart to have that. I came home from work one afternoon, December 14th, 1966, and we had, Renee was in bed, Pamela and Renee were in bed. You got a 3.5 and a 4-year-old in bed. So I said to Marianne, go ahead and go downtown and do your Christmas shopping. So the kids were in bed, and I went downstairs, and I started working on a Christmas tree platform. So I have a 7-inch circular saw, and you got to be smart to do these kind of things. I plugged the saw in first, then I start changing the blade, and I'm holding the saw with this hand, and when I'm changing the blade, this finger triggered the blade, and boom, these fingers came off, and I saw blood squirting across the room, and I grabbed my 2 fingers to stop the bleeding, and I walked up the steps, out of the house, across the porch, over a railing, up to my neighbor's house, and I'm ringing the doorbell with my elbow, and she didn't answer, so I let loose my fingers to knock on the door, and blood squirted all over her storm door, and she opened the door, and she said, what's the matter? And I said, I cut my fingers off. How about watching the kids so I can go to the hospital? She said, how you going to go? I said, I'm going to drive. She said, how you going to drive like that? So she went and got a towel and wrapped around my hand. She called the Mount Lebanon police, and they were there in 5 minutes. And they took me to the hospital. One took me to the hospital, the other stayed there. And when they got to the hospital, they put formaldehyde to stop the bleeding. And I was in the hallway on one of those gurneys, and I reached up and got the telephone, called my boss to tell him what happened. So then they took me to the operating room, and the doctor started operating. He started clipping the rough ends of the bones, and I said to the doctor, don't cut my fingernails too short. And the doctor and the nurses all broke up, and so they brought the saw back. They couldn't find the fingers. I said, bring the damn saw back. So they brought the saw back, and I said, get me a pair of pliers and a spike. And I took the saw apart, and when I got the blade out, the 2 fingertips fell on the floor, and the nurse picked up the fingertips and said, here's your fingertips. She put them on the stand by the bed. I said, a lot of good they're going to do me there. So anyhow, they kept operating. The doctor did a good job. He called about 5 different hospitals across the country to see what about sewing them back on. And he told me, he said, if I sew them back on, there'll be more in your way because they'd be numb than there'd be any good. I said, you do what you think's best for me. Because if you called me about insurance, you'd want me to do what I thought was best for you. And he did a good job. So consequently, I picked my nose. I tell my grandkids, you can't pick your nose like I can.
You know it's my husband.
All right, Aunt Evelyn, have you had any health problems?
Where do you want to start? Where do you want to start with that? No, I have to thank God that I'm fairly healthy. I do have asthma. I got that a few years ago. They said it's because I had bronchitis so many times. It's like a cousin's bronchitis, and I had pneumonia, so that's how I got. Now I have asthma. And as long as I take my medication and take my puffer and do whatever I have to do, I'm fine. I had a total knee in 94.
1 or 2?
1. Thank God. I hope I never have to have another one.
And why did you have to have yours?
Well, I went in for arthroscopic surgery in Washington 4 years before that. Dr. Corwin said, oh, you'll go to work the next day.
What year is that now?
In 1990, Dr. Corwin operated on it, and then ended up I was in the hospital, and I couldn't understand why I was in the hospital. And when I woke up, and they told me that it was so bad that they had to do some intensive repair. So then 4 years later, I had to have total knee, and I didn't want to have it done. I went to get a second opinion, and they told me yes, I had.
So what caused yours? Arthritis also?
I don't know whether it was arthritis, but when I was in Italy in 1990 for the company, I fell. And I don't know if that had anything to do with it or not. But
You scrub forward in your hands
and I always go forward on my hands and knees, and now I try to do it, and once I get down, it's kind of hard getting back up.
And Uncle Bill, did you have any health problems?
No, fortunately.
None? I thought you had a blood clot.
Oh, yeah.
When you were
That's
driving?
right. I did have a blood clot in my leg in 1996. I hadn't forgotten about that. But we were on a trip out west, and I was in Colorado visiting my brother when I had a blood clot, and went to the hospital there for 7 days.
And what caused that? Did you know?
Sitting in a car too long without stretching my legs. I was in the car 13 hours and we only stopped twice to stretch. And that's what they blame it on mostly.
Bill, why did you have to stop working that time, years back?
Balance problem. They never, nobody ever figured out what it was, but Dr. Neese, when I was up there having my ears checked one time, he said that he feels that blood going to my cerebellum brain was causing me to lose oxygen to my brain. That would cause my dizziness. Not dizziness, but lightheadedness, more than dizzy. If I look up or down, I get a little woozy. You want to lose balance, you know.
Okay. Uncle Sam.
Well, I got married in
I didn't know.
1954, 1955, no, 56, I was having problems urinating, and so they finally sent me to a specialist, found out I had
It's
my
just in time to wash dishes and pots.
pressing on my
Oh, we're
bladder.
glad somebody showed up.
All right.
Exploratory surgery, he took out my appendix. and
Let's
took out
make this
5
way. If you don't know the way, I'll
almost
show
died.
you.
They called in the picture and everybody else. Yeah, what it was, they had a tube in my, through my nose and through my tube had a kink in it. Instead of poison coming out, it went all through my picture. So they really thought I was going to die. Then in 57, I had a miscarriage, 4.5 months, 5.5 months. And then in 59, I had Kathleen, and she was 7.5 months, and she lived for 18 hours. And I didn't see her. My husband saw her, and the preacher saw her, but they didn't think it was a good idea for me to see her.
You know that'd be back.
He told me I would never.
You'll be one of the family pretty
He told me
soon.
I'd never have any. I would never have any children. And then in 1960, I had Janet, and the doctor said, I don't think you should have any more. And I said, well, I don't want an only child. And I had Joanne 2 years later, and then 2 years later when I had Judy, the doctor said, this is it. And I had hysterectomy 6 months after I had
We have here.
Because
And who is Michelle?
Michelle's my fiance.
No way. Yeah, way.
And when are you getting married?
July 12th, 2003.
And what do you guys do?
But then they're like they go to Pitt, graduate in April, information science.
Sophie Academy, graduated 4 weeks.
All right, thank you.
now you can go eat. I'm in good shape now after about 14 operations of this. I had hiatal hernia.
You didn't have an operation on that.
No, but I got that. Then in 91, I went for my prostate checkup, and the doctor fell up in there, and he said, oh boy, there's something up in there. So they put the scissors up there, they took 5 or 6 pieces. Then They said, well, we gotta send it away. He said, it's in the bag, and he said it was cancer. He said, well, you want me to treat you or cut it out? I said, cut it out. He said, but that's gonna ruin your sex life. You won't have no more kids. My wife said, cut it out. so I had the operation in 91. Then I had, wasn't it 97 or something like that for my gallbladder. Yeah, my gallbladder. I had it taken out. I had a hernia. I had polyps on my rear end. They cut them out on it. I had three-in-one operations. You know, just like a 3-in-1 oil. I had that done. So.
Buy one, get two free.
And what else I had?
That's all.
Well, what, I see you're wearing a hearing aid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then I have cataracts. I had both eyes.
Yeah, but you had surgery.
On both eyes for cataracts. Then I got. They said if you get hearing aids, you can hear better, but I think that was a waste of money. It's a couple $1,000 turned out great. So otherwise, I'm doing good. At least I got a couple good doctors taking care of me. My wife and my 2 daughters. So thank God for that.
All right, and Al, what about your health history?
No problem.
Nothing.
Just the 5 kids.
Blood pressure. I have high blood pressure.
Just take it off.
I can't see you.
Yeah.
It must run in the family. I have high blood pressure too.
All right. Aunt Marianne, tell us about your health problems.
Oh, other than having high blood pressure, I'm in very good health. I, for years, had migraine headaches that were very bad, but they found something to give me to prevent them, so I don't get the migraine headaches anymore. But other than that, I've been in very good health.
What about your psoriasis?
Oh, that's not a health problem.
Okay, and I heard Aunt Evelyn said I had that too. I forgot. What was that?
Cataract surgery. I had cataract surgery both eyes.
Both eyes.
John did too.
I had.
Just the one eye.
You done? You got it off?
So that noise.
42 years making furnace.
All right, so that's what they're.
Going, crane going, air.
So that's what they're talking about, the hearing problem, that it might not run in the family. Maybe it was affiliated with Uncle Sam.
I don't know what caused mine. I got a hearing aid in both ears. I got it from the VA hospital. I had a cataract removed from my right eye. I had an appendectomy in 1948 and almost died from that. I had peritonitis. My appendix had leaked. And I had rotator cuff surgery on my right shoulder. So that's the extent of my medical history.
All right. So who wants to tell us about the story about Uncle Pat's business? Uncle Sam, do you and Uncle John want to help out with that?
On who?
About Uncle Pat and Uncle Bill's, the Maytag. We kind of thought they started the business.
Oh, yeah.
Uncle Pat and Hazel started the business.
And I thought Bill had something to do with it.
Well, Pat, well, they probably was in the talking stage when they worked to get up. Pat was going to school, so he used to go up Maytag school, help Bill paint washers and do all that. And
So was it a franchise in the beginning, or Uncle Bill just worked for the company? That's how he got into business?
Bill was never in business by himself. Well, he had a second-hand store. I used to go to Trinity and then run the second-hand store for it. Then I used to be in there selling the used wash machines for $25, $30. Then the kids used to go to Trinity Bay, Scary, Uncle Davidson, they used to play hokey. They used to stay in the store there instead of going to school. Keep me company. And we used to go a couple doors up. My brother Joe had that donut shop. We used to get donuts up there and sit down and eat.
Where was the donut shop?
Right up there.
So did Uncle Joe own the donut
Right on Chestnut, right
Did Uncle Joe own the donut place?
drugstore, but
Uncle
we had the
Joe and
second-hand
somebody
store.
else
And
were
on up there, a couple
partners.
doors was the barber shop.
But they had
I
a
put in
franchise
50
of
cents in,
Krispy Kreme donuts.
Mr. Rocco, you had a barber
Sonny
shop
has some
there.
information
I
on
used to
that.
cut my
He's
hair
got
and I
some
used to take my
pictures and
kids up there and get their
stuff about
haircuts.
Christmas.
We used to have a brown truck, had
Krispy
Krispy Kreme.
We could all be rich.
Yeah, we blew it.
Your grandfather and grandmother, Rose, had a grocery store when we were kids.
Before that,
Before, when we were real small.
I don't remember.
Manfredi's or Manjapans?
Manfredi's. My dad used to buy, that's how the Manjapans and the Manfredi's become friends. My dad's store used to buy the cheese off of the Manjapanis. And they, right up the street from where my mother and dad had the store, Manjapanis had a cheese store. Then they ended up moving to New York. And they still used to, Charlie, the oldest Manjapani, used to live with us.
I figured that they got rid of the store after they had me before, before that.
Yeah.
Because I was born in 21 and I don't remember the store.
Well, all I remember is from stories.
Yeah, as I said, so it'd be 1918, 19 or something. During the war years, they probably got rid of the store.
So then Uncle Bill and Uncle Pat started the Maytag store, but it was supposed to be a family-run business? Oh, Bill didn't have anything to do with it?
Yeah, Bill did.
Hey, you what started it with Uncle Pat. Bill started
Bill had us first.
Bill had a used store around the corner from where he worked.
The Bill had owned that whole building.
Well, he bought the
That's
building.
down there on Main Street, yeah.
Bill bought the building, but he didn't have the store. The store didn't start until after he died.
Then Pat took over.
Pat and Hazel started that store.
Hungry.
Just through long past, they have a volunteer yard right now.
Pat helped Pat work with Bill.
Yeah. At the beginning of it, they had a used store up on Chestnut Street.
Who's they? Had a used store on Chestnut Street.
Bill had a used store, and Pat and Sammy worked there. I worked there after school a lot of times, from Trinity. And then it ended up, after Bill died, Pat and Hazel opened a store down on South Main Street, because my brother Bill bought that building and put the Manfredi name at the top. Was it Bill that bought that building?
Yeah. Bill was in the Maytag. Bill was in the washer and dryer business before he died. Because I remember.
I thought it was a horse and buggy.
No, it was a motorcycle.
And
I never heard that.
they said that he'd never live, and my mother carried him home on a pillow, and my mother said he'll live, and they prayed.
You left the Catholic Church and Grandpap became a Christian, that they were talking about end times, and he felt it was end times and quit the store and went up on the hill and didn't work for like a while. Do you remember that story?
No.
I remember my dad had a nervous breakdown. My mother told me that. And they put him away for a while.
That's because he didn't want to work. He thought the Lord would put him
And
back.
my mother had a hard time raising
Anybody.
You want to say good? You guys each say goodbye. We'll let everyone say goodbye.
Well, I'm just going to say that this is a very enjoyable day, and I want to thank Rosemary and Terry for opening up their home and raising this, and I think it's very nice. There was a lot of things that I don't know that I wish I would have asked my mother before she passed away. I lived with her until she in her house before she died. A lot of things she told me, but there's a lot of things I wish I would have asked her about that I didn't. And I think it was nice of them to invite us here and have such a delicious feast. And someday we could do it again.
All right, Rose. It's your turn.
What am I going to say? I don't know what to say.
Thank Rose and Terry for...
Yeah, I thank Rose and Terry for inviting me to come here. And everything was good. All the food was good.
Memories.
And I hope they have it again.
I want to thank Rose and Terry for this occasion. Thank you, girls. Rose and I think Joanne had a lot to do with it for trying to, how do I want to say it?
Technical support.
Yeah.
You wanted to find out just how we were raised, what our families meant, and our families do mean a lot to each other, and to put this down in videotape for future reference for our younger relatives to see, I think this is a fantastic thing. And I want a copy of it so that my daughters can have it to show their kids. Thank you very much for all your...
Evelyn, thank you people for having us here, and I'm glad that I'm here with my brother and my two sisters, and we enjoyed ourselves, and my wife, my two daughters, and I want to thank my big sister Jenny for taking care of you kids. She was a mother and dad to you, and so she did a good job, so I appreciate what she's done for us. Thanks a lot.
I don't remember that.
I don't know when
I heard that, I don't remember that. I was in the summer.
We're supposed to tell things like that.
My dad had a.
My friends were going to the Navy, and we got a gallon of wine, went up to the base of the theater on the second floor balcony, and we drank that wine. We all got drunk. They took me up in the side alley, set me on a pair of steps under a gutter that was leaking, and they went and called my brother, and I passed out, and they couldn't bring me to. They took me home on mother's living room floor, and I can remember my mother rubbing my hands with lemons, my feet, and I ended up puking all over my brother's car.
I remember him coming down the steps, and my dad had this beautiful clock. I'd love to know where it is. That big one of those grandfather clocks with the chimes, and he's fighting that clock like crazy. I'll never forget that. I remember that.
That
was before he knew me.
I was in the service. That's before me too. I was in the service. So I don't remember that.
Oh, that was the only time I ever remember you being
You had all of us kids picking elderberries, passing
Oh, yeah,
and we were trying to make barrels of wine, and it turned to vinegar.
You're dead.
Yeah, and you took axes and out right in front of your house.
Yeah.
And all our hard work with vinegar down the road.
When we was kids, we used to go
Mine's
pick
not made it
blackberries.
that good.
My dad used to make 8, 9 big barrels of 50-gallon barrels of wine. We used to, we didn't stop it with, our feet like it, that's what us tired to do. You didn't.
We had the grinding machine.
Yeah.
We used to grind the grapes.
They claim you used to dance and then with your bare feet and all that, but
Terry does that.
we used
Yeah, I'll dance in my one.
You still got all those barrels?
I wish we did know.
I remember the time when we used to go picking elderberries.
Yeah.
And every time I went, I got poison ivy.
That was blackberry.
Or blackberry.
Yeah.
But anyway, Aunt Mary, one day, this big bull was up there. She had a red outfit on.
How about when we used to pick dandelions?
Chasing her all.
We used to go pick dandelions by the tubful.
Oh, yeah.
For wine.
Yeah, we used to cook them. We used to cook them and eat them. They used to make minestra, dandelions and potatoes in the stew.
Oh, that was good.
Well, Carol, what do you remember growing up in the family?
Kennywood.
Carol, sit towards your mom. I can't see you because of the chair.
Are you taping that? Oh, I do.
We went to everybody's houses. We were always over at each other's houses.
Every Sunday.
I remember every Sunday going to Sammy's house and bringing the
Going
kids.
to sell baggies and getting bread and
And I'll never
and all
forget
the kids, they were playing cards. All the kids would be under the table.
That's right, I remember under the
Yeah.
table.
But we visited back and forth. I mean, we were always, every Sunday, we just visited everybody.
Right. Yeah, I did. And then it's today, it's different.
Nobody has time for